Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 46, The Benefit of Crossing Your Legs and Cultivating Leg Numb. Chapter 46, The Benefit of Crossing Your Legs and Cultivating Leg Numb. Wang Teng was enlightened. No wonder this landlord didn't care about money. No wonder he didn't care if he was receiving 1,000 RMB lesser for his rent. This was how outstanding a man with 18 properties should be. This was how arrogant and amazing he was. One must admit that he had the right to do so. Although he seemed a little scared of his wife, he still put up a strong front. Though deep down inside, Wang Teng could see a weak and heartless soul that had suffered greatly. Amen. Let's stand in a silent tribute for 3 seconds. Looking at Wang Teng's gaze, the rough-looking man opened his mouth. Brother, you don't have to say anything. I understand. I respect a man like you too. Hurry up and beat I meant buy soy sauce. Your wife is still waiting for you. Wang Teng patted his shoulder and said earnestly. The rough-looking man opened his mouth again, but he couldn't say a single word. In the end, he just waved his hand and walked dejectedly towards the convenience stall at the side to buy soy sauce. This was how a real man should act. He must have the guts to face the female tiger at home. Wang Teng got into his car and glanced at the lonely back view one last time. He sighed before he left, letting his sigh dissipate in the wind. Wang Teng went back to school. There were 10 minutes until the lessons resumed. But, he didn't plan to go back to his classroom. He felt that it was a waste of time for him to stay in the classroom obediently. He didn't need to worry about the 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers. He would take some time every day to farm for attributes. Soon, he would be able to reach full marks. Class monitor, please cover for me in the afternoon. Wang Teng said to Lin Chuhan. Under the lady's helpless gaze, he left the classroom lightheartedly. This fellow is so infuriating. He always asks me to cover up for him. I should have ignored him at the start. Why is he asking me again and again? He's being insatiable. Lin Chuhan stomped her feet uncontrollably. Actually, all the teachers knew that this rich second generation, Wang Teng, was either skipping classes or playing with his phone in class. However, they had always turned a blind eye to him. In the teachers' eyes, Wang Teng was a hopeless cause. They were already delighted if he didn't affect the other students in class. The school bell rang. The noise and clamor inside the school campus slowly quietened down. After some time, only the sound of teachers teaching could be heard. Wang Teng walked along the paths in school. He decided to find a place to cultivate the force. Ever since he became a martial warrior, he had never practiced formally. Since he had some spare time now, he would use it to practice his force skill scriptures and see their effects. There was a small patch of forest behind the stadium. Usually, besides a few bad students who went there to smoke, very few would go there. It was lesson time now, so there was no one there at all. Wang Teng thought for a moment and walked towards the small forest. A few bird chips and cries of insects were the only noise in the otherwise silent small forest. This area seemed exceptionally quiet and peaceful. Wang Teng kept walking further in and saw a huge rock. There was just enough space for a person to sit on its surface. He jumped lightly and sat down cross-legged on the rock. The tree shade above him coincidentally blocked the scorching sun for him. But, the temperature was still on the high side. Wang Teng used his ice element force to create a circle of ice cubes around him. The temperature instantly lowered to a cool spring breeze. Comfortable. Seeing that there was no one around him, Wang Teng closed his eyes and began practicing his force skill scriptures. He started with the red flame scripture. Following the instructions on the scripture, he drew out the fire force in his force nucleus and circulated them around his limbs and bones. Wang Teng slowly entered the state of cultivation. All the fire force in his surroundings surged towards him. Based on the description of red flame scripture, when the force circled once around the body following the scripture's instructions and then returned to the force nucleus, this was considered a cycle. At this moment, the fire force had already finished one cycle. However, Wang Teng didn't stop. He continued cultivating. 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles. 1 hour passed very quickly. Wang Teng was exceptionally focused when he was cultivating. An hour later, he slowly opened his eyes. He felt that the fire force in his body had become much stronger. He was also more well versed with red flame scripture. His gaze landed on his attributes panel. Talent, beginner stage fire talent, 11/300, beginner stage ice talent, 13/300, beginner stage earth talent, 12/300, spiritual sight, beginner stage 1.1/10. Force, 63/100 fire, 1-star soldier level martial warrior. Scripture, red flame scripture, foundation 5/100, deep ice scripture, foundation 2/100, earth lowest skill earth element shield, foundation 2/100. Battle techniques, basic battle techniques, mastery for fist, sword, blade, footwork, basic stick skill, foundation, gun skill, small achievement, fire Kirin sword skill, foundation 40/100, phantom ice fist, foundation 9/100. My fire force only increased by 1 point. Wang Teng's eyes widened in surprise. He had cultivated for an entire hour, but his fire force only increased by a single point. He was flabbergasted by the turtle-like speed. Typically, he relied on collecting attributes to raise his points, so his abilities increased exponentially. It couldn't be any faster. As expected, there was no harm if there was no comparison. It looked like he was really spoiled by the system. What if the system disappeared one day? Once Wang Teng thought of this possibility, his heart constricted. He hurriedly shook his head to dispel the thought. No way, I can't be over-reliant on the system. I must work hard on my cultivation. He took a deep breath and steeled his heart. Wang Teng's gaze became resolute. After sorting out his thoughts on this matter, he adjusted his mentality and started to be positive. Then, his gaze went down the attributes panel. Red flame scripture, foundation 5/100, his proficiency had increased by 3 points. Wang Teng nodded silently. If he continued working hard like this, it would only be a matter of time before he achieved his breakthrough. When he reached the next level, his cultivation speed would definitely become faster. He started cultivating again. But, he changed the scripture he was practicing to Deepose scripture and Earth Lois skill. As compared to the fire force, his ice force and earth force were undeniably too weak. Yesterday night, when he was fighting with his opponent, the ice force had played a decisive role as an unexpected final move that took his opponent by surprise. Thus, there was a need to upgrade these two forces. In the future, they could be his hidden trump cards. Time passed slowly. For the entire afternoon, Wang Teng sat on the rock and cultivated his force skill scriptures without moving an inch. When the school bell signaling the end of the last lesson ended, he stopped his cultivation. He glanced at the attributes panel one last time. His ice force and earth force had increased by 1.5 points, respectively. At the same time, his deep ice scripture had improved by 4 points and his earth lowest skill by 3. The gains are not bad. This time, Wang Teng didn't look down on the small increase. Yes, his mentality had gotten stable. He wanted to get down from the rock, but his two legs were stiff. He almost fell to the ground. Oh my God, what a huge fright! He grabbed the rock in a flurry and panted. As a martial warrior, he almost fell down from a rock that was only this tall in height. If word spread out, other people would laugh at him. Damn it, novels are fake. Who says that the cultivation results are better when you cross your legs? My legs are numb. He couldn't move his legs at all. Wang Teng had no choice but to pry his legs open with his hand and let them rest for a while. Only then could he step on the ground and walk. He kept complaining in his heart. Chapter 47, Practice Taiki. The good for health kind. Chapter 47, Practice Taiki. The good for health kind. After the lesson ended, the school became extremely noisy. The students from the different years walked out of their classrooms. They merged into human streams and surged towards the entrance of the school. Wang Teng went straight to the teacher's office instead. He was going there to look for his head teacher, Mr. Fan Weiming, to register for the martial arts exam. The office was livelier than what Wang Teng expected. The desks of the head teachers of the Year 3 classes were even more so. They were surrounded by students, making the whole office appear crowded. When Wang Teng knocked on the door, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. After all, Wang Teng was quite famous in the Year 3 cohort. Why is it him? What is he doing here? Did he come to register? The rich second generation wants to participate in the martial arts exam too? Has he even practiced martial arts before? Is he joking around? Did he say that he had never practiced martial arts before? The sudden rhetorical question caused the people discussing in hushed voices to turn strangely quiet. Well, he has never said that before. In that case, what are you all gossiping about? Oh. Oh. The conversation was put to an abrupt halt. Then, everyone continued gathering around their head teachers and registered their names seriously. It felt as if nothing had happened. Wang Teng. Fan Weiming also noticed Wang Teng. His tone carried obvious surprise. You came to register too? Come in. As a professional head teacher, he clearly knew how many students in his class had chances of entering the martial arts course. Wang Teng was obviously not one of them. Although Wang Teng's father occasionally gave him gifts, he still had his principles. I will persuade this fellow later. The martial arts exam isn't something to play with. Fan Weiming thought to himself secretly. Then, he continued, wait at the side for a moment. I will help them finish their registration first. Okay. Wang Teng nodded. His gaze landed on his classmates. There were a few people he was unfamiliar with. Then, there was Yang Jian, who sat in front of him, and his table buddy and class monitor, Lin Chuhan. Yang Jian was fine. He had an uncle working in the Ministry of Education, so he had gotten some inside scoop a long time ago. He had more time to prepare as compared to other people. Thus, his confidence was explanatory. As for Lin Chuhan, forgetting her ability first, the 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers was enough to let her suffer. However, she came to register the next day after the announcement was released. It should be known that many people were still hesitating. They couldn't decide within such a short time. The martial arts exam was intersected with the regular university entrance exam. If one applied for the martial arts exam, they wouldn't be able to take part in a few subjects of the standard university entrance exam. It looked like Lin Chuhan's resolution was quite firm. Lin Chuhan, have you thought about this carefully? Wang Teng moved towards Lin Chuhan and asked in a low voice. That's right, class monitor. The martial arts exam isn't a child's play. There's even a death rate for the actual combat assessment. It's very dangerous. Yang Jian was in a dilemma just now. He didn't know how to open his mouth. Hence, when he heard Wang Teng starting this topic, he jumped into the conversation and persuaded Lin Chuhan. I know. I have given it careful thought, Lin Chuhan nodded and replied. Your parents agreed? Wang Teng asked with a frown. My parents, I can make my own decision. Lin Chuhan obviously hesitated for a second, but she still replied to them firmly. The corner of Wang Teng's mouth twitched. So, she didn't discuss it with her parents. Was this young lady so independent? He wanted to dissuade her again, but when he saw her stubborn and pretty face, he swallowed the words back into his mouth. Sigh, forget it. Everyone has their right to make decisions. Since she has made up her mind, there's no point in me persuading her otherwise. Yang Jian saw that Wang Teng had shut his mouth. It wasn't appropriate for him to continue speaking, either. At this moment, all the other students had finished their registration. He walked forward and handed over his registration fee. Then, he filled in the registration form, and just like that, the registration process was done. The process was surprisingly simple. Yang Jian left after he finished his registration. Fan Weiming took the water cup beside him and opened its lid. He blew the water in the cup. With his sharp eyes, Wang Teng noticed the goji berries in the cup flipping their bodies naughtily. Underscore. Lin Chuhan tried her best to maintain the stern expression on her face. Fan Weiming didn't sense their change in expression, though. He took a sip of his goji berry tea and looked at the two people in front of him. His head was hurting slightly. One was the top student in his Year 3 Class 8. She was one of the best talents in the Year 3 cohort and had the potential to enter the first university. But, this child wanted to participate in the martial arts exam. He wasn't saying that the martial arts exam was bad, it was just a problem of suitability. In terms of studies, Lin Chuhan was the best in the entire Donghai No. 1 high school. However, speaking of the martial arts exam, if she was really able to pass the exam, her results wouldn't be high. At least, it wouldn't be as high as her general papers. Lin Chuhan had rushed over immediately after her lesson ended. He had persuaded her for a long time, but her mind was fixed. He couldn't convince him no matter how hard he tried. How could Fan Weiming's head not hurt? As for the other person, Wang Teng, he was a rich second generation. His studies were extremely poor, and there was nothing that could be said about it. But, the martial arts exam wasn't an ordinary exam. Fan Weiming didn't want him to joke around with his life. Thus, he said, Wang Teng, I've said before that the martial arts exam is dangerous. You didn't hear me, right? Teacher, I heard you all right. Wang Teng rolled his eyes. Why doesn't he trust me? You heard me, then why do you still want to register for it? Fan Weiming was frustrated. Teacher, I understand that you're doing this for my sake, but I know what I'm doing. You don't have to worry. Wang Teng noticed that his teacher still appeared unconvinced, so he revealed his trump card. Also, my father agreed. Oh. Your father agreed? Fan Weiming was slightly stunned. He wondered to himself, it looks like he has his ways. It's good to be wealthy. Eventually, he nodded. In that case, come over and register. He handed the registration form to Wang Teng. Wang Teng paid the fee and signed his big name on the form. Done. At the same time, Fan Weiming addressed Lin Chuhan again. Chuhan, I still hope that you will consider this again. The university entrance exam is a huge turning point in life. You can't act on impulse. Teacher, I'm not acting on impulse. I've already thought about this very, very clearly, Lin Chuhan replied with a bitter smile. She didn't expect her greatest obstacle to be her head teacher. She knew that he was doing this for her sake, but she really wanted to take part in the martial arts exam. She was very determined, so determined that if she didn't participate, she would regret it for life. Teacher, even if I participate in the martial arts exam, I won't give up my general papers. Lin Chuhan bit her lips and continued, if I can't pass the martial arts exam this year, I will give up wholeheartedly. I will repeat my year and go for the normal university entrance exam. Since she had already said this, Fan Weiming couldn't do anything more, no matter how unwilling he was. He just sighed and approved her application. After the two of them left the office, a teacher at the side said to Fan Weiming, "Mr. Fan, that's the top student in your class, right? Are you letting her go just like this? What else can I do? Her mind is set. Am I supposed to prevent her from registering?" Fan Weiming glanced sideways at the other party. "Sigh, that's true. But, honestly speaking, the attractiveness of the martial arts path is really frightening. If I was a few years younger, I might have wanted to give it a try, too," said the teacher. "Why can't you practice if you're older? Do you know Taiki? It's passed down from our planet. After some modifications by the martial warriors, Taiki is now very suitable for old people to practice. Even if you are not a martial warrior, you can use it to strengthen your body." Fan Weiming took a sip of his goji berry tea as he spoke calmly. "Oh? Mr. Fan, have you practiced it before?" The teacher's eyes lit up. "Haha, of course." Fan Weiming was a little proud. His interest was immediately perked up. "Let me tell you, Taiki is excellent for our health. After practicing it, my back doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm not balding. I'm very energetic at night too. Degree, Mr. Fan, teach me when you're free, carrot. No problem. Let's meet in the park in the evening." "Sure, see you at the park." Chapter 48, A Data Report. Chapter 48, A Data Report. After coming out of the teacher's office, Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan walked to the school gate side by side. "Class monitor, it's dinner time now. Why don't I treat you to a meal?" "There's no need for that. My mom has already cooked dinner and is waiting for me to go back." Lin Chuhan rejected him without any hesitation. "All right, we will part here then." Wang Teng smiled. He didn't mind her response. "All right, goodbye," replied Lin Chuhan. Wang Teng waved his hand. He sat in his car and drove away alone. Along the way, he called the landlord and informed him that he was going over to the house now. Approximately 10 minutes later, in the university town, it was the same pavement beside the main road. The rough-looking man rode his little scooter with a beauty sitting behind him. The scene looked extremely dissolute. It was the same rough-looking man but with an additional beauty hugging his waist. Wang Teng almost couldn't recognize the guy. He parked his sports car at the side of the road and got down. "Little brother Wang, over here." The landlord waved at him. Wang Teng walked over only after he was called. He said in a meaningful tone, "Brother, I only left for an afternoon, but I almost couldn't recognize you." The landlord obviously knew what he meant. He laughed and said, low profile." The beauty behind him rolled her eyes and lifted her hand to pinch his fat waist. "Stupid fellow." "Oh my," the voice was a little sweet. "Ouch." The rough-looking man gasped in pain. "You must be young Master Wang, the king of Kidian Orphanage, right? Old Wang mentioned you before." The beauty turned to Wang Teng and said. The landlord burst out laughing when he saw Wang Teng's frustrated expression. "All right, don't mention this matter anymore. Normal people won't have the ability to bear with this name. It's all youth's fault." Wang Teng replied helplessly. "How old are you?" The beauty covered her mouth and smiled. "Let me introduce her to you. This is my wife. You can call her Sister Han," said the landlord. "Sister Han." Wang Teng called. Then, he continued, "My name is Wang Teng. You can call me by my name." "You and old Wang have the same surname," Sister Han smiled and replied. "That's right. Brother has the surname Wang too." "Oh right, I don't know your name yet." Wang Teng smiled. He felt that this was fate. "There's no need to mention my name. I'll call you Brother Wang, and if you don't mind, You can call me old brother Wang. Wang Depeo gave a look of contempt when his name was mentioned. Wang Teng didn't probe further. He nodded and asked, "Are you going out to play?" "That's right. This idiot hasn't brought me out for a long time. He hardly accompanied me out today," Sister Han said sadly. "Old brother Wang, this is your fault. Sister Han is so pretty. How can you coop her up at home for so long?" Wang Teng smiled. "Did you hear that? Learn from little Teng. Look at how smart he is." Sister Han pinched Wang Depeo's ears as she said. Wang Depeo's expression became distorted due to the pain. He glared at Wang Teng with hidden bitterness on his face. "I will not disturb you, then. Old brother Wang, get along quickly." Wang Teng pushed Wang Depeo in a friendly manner. At the same time, in the office building of Jixin Marshall House, a young lady around 20 years old was walking towards the principal's office in haste. There was a piece of paper in her hand. It was a data report. Xiaoming was a staff member of Jixin Marshall House. While she was collecting the data of the Marshall disciples today, something caught her attention. At the principal's office entrance, Xiaoming adjusted her breathing that had turned a little rapid because of her brisk walk. Then, she knocked on the door. "Knock, knock, knock. Come in." A deep voice came from inside. Xiaoming pushed the door open and walked in. "What's the matter?" The principal was a man around 30 years old. He had short hair that looked like steel spikes on his head. Every single strand of his hair was erected. He wore a stern expression and gave off a fierce and sharp aura. The staff of Jixin Marshall House would all feel a little frightened when facing the principal. Xiaoming was no exception. At this moment, she needed to gather her courage before she dared to step forward and place the data report on the principal's table. "Principal, there's something wrong with this report. I think that you should take a look at it." "Oh." Fu Tiandao raised his eyebrows. He stopped what he was doing and turned his attention to the date report. He took the report and leaned against his chair. He scanned through it twice. A normal person rose to become an advanced stage martial disciple in less than a month. This is interesting." Fu Tiandao smiled ambiguously. Xiaoming wanted to say something, but Fu Tiandao continued, "You can leave now. I'll keep it with me. Also, don't tell anyone else about the content of this report." "Yes." Xiaoming replied in a hurry. Xiaoming didn't dare to probe further. After Wang Teng took the keys from the landlord, he placed the crow egg in the bedroom in the house. He then turned on the incubator and slowly incubated the egg. Then, he drove his car home to have dinner. Afterward, as usual, he went to the martial arts academy to pick up some attributes. For the next 2 days, Wang Teng's life was very peaceful. He followed the same routine every day. In the morning, he would go to school to collect some 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers attributes. If he didn't want to attend the lesson, he would go to the little forest to practice his force skill scriptures. This allowed the proficiency of his force and skill scriptures to rise. At night, he would visit Jixin Marshall House to pick up some attributes to perfect his basic battle techniques and raise his battle power. Of course, he didn't forget his 2 main offensive force battle techniques, Fire Kirin sword skill and Phantom Ice Fist. After repeated attempts, Wang Teng realized that he was able to raise 1 point of his battle technique every 10 times he practiced. Also, as his enlightenment increased, the speed of his cultivation followed suit. This caused his thirst for enlightenment attributes to grow stronger. Wang Teng also experimented with the defense ability of Earth Element Shield. If he executed it to its fullest potential, Earth Element Shield could block approximately 80% of his attacking power. This was not bad already, keeping in mind that his overall battle power was at 201 points now. This meant that Earth Element Shield was able to neutralize a third to half of a full-fledged attack of a 1-star high-class martial warrior. This was enough to save his life in critical times. Furthermore, as long as he had ample earth force, the defensibility of his earth force could still be increased. Enlightenment, 90. Spirit, 22.8. Force, 64/100. Fire, 1-star soldier level martial warrior. 8/100. Ice, 1-star soldier level martial warrior. 7/100. Earth, 1-star soldier level martial warrior. Scripture, Red Flame Scripture, Foundation 20/100, Deep Ice Scripture, Foundation 12/100, Earth Lowest Skill Earth Element Shield, Foundation 15/100. Battle Techniques, Basic Battle Techniques, Mastery for Fist, Sword, Blade, Footwork, Basic Stick Skill, Foundation, Gun Skill, Small Achievement, Fire Kirin Sword Skill, Foundation 43/100, Phantom Ice Fist, Foundation 13/100. Knowledge, Basic Subjects, Full Marks, 5 years of Martial Arts Exam, 3 years of Mock Papers, 80 points. Overall Battle Power, 201. Wang Teng nodded in satisfaction when he looked at the changes in his attributes board. It was improving at a visible rate. This was enough to delight him. Besides cultivation, Wang Teng also guarded against the team that the Earth Element Martial Warrior had mentioned before his death. The 3 martial warriors that died were probably just a part of a martial warrior team. Their disappearance would definitely raise the attention of the other team members. He hoped that those people wouldn't be able to find him out. Friday arrived. Master Lu flagship store, where Wang Teng had ordered his weapon carrier casket, finally responded to him. Chapter 49, Hurry up and become a certified martial warrior. Chapter 49, Hurry up and become a certified martial warrior. Master Lu, dear, your little basket is ready, _. What did he mean by little basket? Why can't he type properly? The happiness in his heart instantly turned into a stomach full of complaints that he couldn't vent. The other party immediately sent a photo over. Weapon carrier casket.jpg. The appearance of the weapon carrier casket was a little different from the last time he saw it. The color was changed to black. At the same time, there were a few silver runes on the surface. The whole thing looked extremely mysterious. Not bad, it's just a little eye-catching. Is this person a rune master? Wang Teng couldn't help but guess. Wang Teng, you even added runes. Master Lu, that's right, dear. Relying solely on the mechanism is getting outdated. Hence, I added some runes to add finishing touches. As long as you activate the rune, the weapon you need will spring out with a swoosh. It's really convenient to use. Wang Teng, not bad. In that case, the price should be higher, right? Master Lu, the price doesn't matter. My grandfather will be elated if I'm able to sell this weapon carrier casket. It's alright to spend some effort on this matter. This was a good person. That's right, he is a filial and good person. Wang Teng gave him a long-distance good man card. Wang Teng, alright, I will pay and order now. You can send the casket to me immediately. Master Lu, sure. Yay. Wang Teng noticed that the person on the other end really loved to use emoticons. This person must have graduated from the Emoticon University. If that wasn't the case, the Chinese Academy of Emoticons owed him a certificate of graduation. Wang Teng, why don't you give yourself another nickname for future use? You can call yourself Crazy for Emoticons. Without requiring the other person's approval, Wang Teng gave the person a loud and pleasant nickname. The price of the weapon carrier casket had already been changed on Doubao. It was 10,000 now. Wang Teng clicked it to place the order. Suddenly, a prompt popped up. Sorry, you have not entered the martial warrior identification number. You can't place the order. What the hell? What is a martial warrior identification number? Why do you need a martial warrior identification number to buy something on Douban? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? Wang Teng was stunned. He quickly asked the other party. Wang Teng, you need a martial warrior identification number to buy the things in your shop. Master Lu, yes, dear. Master Lu, what's the issue? Turned A, turned A, turned A asterisk. Wang Teng remained silent for a few seconds before asking, what is a martial warrior identification number? Master Lu, it's the number on your martial warrior credential. This explanation was amazing. It was the same as not explaining. Wang Teng had no choice but to remain patient. He asked the other party, where can you get the martial warrior credential? This person must be obtuse. Master Lu, you can take the test at the Martial Arts Association. Dear. Are you saying that you don't have the credentials? Hashtag. Dear, what dear? An asterisk sign suddenly appeared on Wang Teng's temple. You would definitely get a heart attack when talking to this person. Wang Teng, why does your shop need the martial warrior identification number? Master Lu, because our shop is a high-class flagship store. All our products are meant for martial warriors, so we need the martial warrior identification number to prove that you are one. It's all written in the visitor information. Dear, did you not see it? Confused face, Wang Teng hurriedly browsed to the front to take a look. He stared at the screen for a long time before he finally found the visitor information at a corner. At yen %yen. He suddenly wanted to curse. The guy had hidden this small line of words within the 10,000 words item description. Who would be able to see it? Wang Teng asked, can you send the item first? I'll give you the martial warrior identification number afterward. Master Lu, I can't do that, dear. Wang Teng, why not? Master Lu, a martial warrior must be certified before he can use rune weapons. Wang Teng, there's such a rule. Master Lu, yes. Hurry up and become a certified martial warrior. As long as your background is clean and you don't have any criminal records, it shouldn't be a problem. The entire process won't take more than half an hour. It's very fast. Wang Teng nodded as he contemplated. Really? You need to have a clean background and no criminal records to become a certified martial warrior. It looks like the authorities were strict with the standard of martial warriors. But, the martial warriors I met just killed people as and when they liked. Why is that so? Wait. I killed someone too. Is that considered a crime? If no one finds out about it, it shouldn't be considered, right? Wang Teng consoled himself by repeating the sentence like a heart mantra. Wang Teng, I will get the certification first then. Master Lu, alright. When you get your credentials, I can send it out right away. You will be able to receive your baby later tonight. Wang Teng was shocked. He asked, I can receive it tonight? That's really fast. What delivery service are you using? Master Lu, you will know when you receive your package. I have to skip my lesson again. It was morning, and he had just finished 2 lessons. Yet, something cropped up again. Wang Teng felt a little helpless. He said to Lin Chuhan, who was beside him, class monitor. Lin Chuhan was absent-minded. She wanted to ask Wang Teng for help, but she was hesitating. She didn't know how to open her mouth. When she heard Wang Teng calling her abruptly, she had a huge shock. What? Lin Chuhan almost jumped out of her seat. She turned her head warily and looked at Wang Teng. She thought that he had noticed her lack of focus and attention. I just called you. Do you have to give such a big reaction? He was speechless, but he had to continue, I need to go out and do something later. You understand? Wang Teng winked at Lin Chuhan. Lin Chuhan heaved a big sigh of relief. So he didn't see through her intentions. What a scare. Wait, you want to skip classes again? The university entrance exam is arriving soon. Do you have any sense of urgency at all? Don't worry. I won't do anything I'm not confident in. I'm leaving. Wang Teng waved his hand and walked out of the classroom. Lin Chuhan was slightly astounded. That was really daring of him. Can he really do it? Or was he just boasting? The Martial Arts Association was an official authority formed by different nations in the world to have unified management of the martial warriors. A martial warrior needed to register with the Martial Arts Association and get the martial warrior credentials to have a legal identity. Then, they would be able to get special privileges not enjoyed by ordinary people. For instance, martial warriors could kill people. Of course, this didn't mean that they could kill anyone whenever. They needed to have a valid reason. If not, they would be punished by law. Martial warriors could also use rune weapons. In public transportations like high-speed railways and airplanes, ordinary people were not allowed to carry weapons. However, martial warriors were able to keep weapons on them legally if they displayed their martial warrior credentials. There were many other benefits too. It was unwise to list them all one by one. Wang Teng researched online and found all these pieces of information. That was when he knew how important the martial warrior credential was to a martial warrior. Many things would become extremely convenient for him. Of course, if he received the martial warrior credential, it also meant that he was indirectly accepting the country's supervision. He wouldn't be able to disobey the law outrightly. This was to protect ordinary civilians. Powerful people used their power to break the law. These weren't words without evidence. When someone possessed great power, they would start to act without any fear. It was hard to control them. At the start of the martial arts era, many riots had occurred. As time went by, the country sent out a large number of martial warriors to suppress the violence. That was when those people who considered themselves invincible understood that the country was still their country. They couldn't act unbridledly whenever they wanted. Hence, the Martial Arts Association was indispensable. Chapter 50, Congratulations to my country. Chapter 50, Congratulations to my country. Donghai Martial Arts Association. Wang Teng stood at the huge entrance and looked at the building in front of him. The size had left him amazed. This was a high-rise building with a sharp octagon tower. The exterior was unique and iconic. From afar, among all the buildings in this area, the first noticeable thing was definitely this huge octagon building. A large crowd was walking back and forth in front of the building at this moment. Many people left and entered the building too. Wang Teng looked around him. These people were all exuding a faint sense of extraordinary. Most of these people are martial warriors. Wang Teng was flabbergasted by his guess as he exclaimed in his heart. He was mostly sure of it. This was the first time he had seen so many martial warriors. Wang Teng got a little nervous. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves. After exhaling, he walked into the huge building. When Wang Teng took a step in, many people focused their gazes at him. There was astonishment in their eyes as they sized him up. However, they couldn't see Wang Teng's face. This was because he was wearing an Ultraman mask. Everyone's gaze was a little strange. Some people indeed wore masks to apply for their martial arts credentials. After all, everyone had secrets. They didn't want to expose themselves. But, this was the first time they saw someone so strange. He was wearing an Ultraman mask. This person must be a joke. Fortunately, they knew that no one dared to create trouble at the Martial Arts Association. Also, from the aura that Wang Teng released purposely, they could discern that he was a martial warrior. Thus, no matter how weird he seemed, no one would be so bored to create trouble for themselves. Hello, I came to apply for the martial warrior certificate. Wang Teng came to the front desk and said to the staff opposite him. The staff member raised her head. It wasn't difficult to imagine her fascinating expression when she saw the Ultraman mask right before her eyes. She forcefully controlled her laughter and nodded sternly. All right, follow me. Under her guidance, Wang Teng arrived outside another room. Please go in. You just need to follow the instructions on the wall and operate the machine. If there's no problem, the system will enter your particulars into the system, and your martial warrior credentials will be out in less than 10 minutes. The staff raised her hand to signal to him as she explained the procedure to him. Wang Teng nodded while listening intently. After he entered the room, the staff closed the door behind him. Wang Teng scanned his surroundings and saw a machine right next to the wall. It looked like an ATM. A sense of familiarity rose in his heart. Beside the ATM-style machine, there was another machine that looked like the sleeping pod in fantasy movies. Wang Teng had used the physique inspection device at Jixin Martial House before. However, this machine looked much more complicated than the one in the Martial Arts Academy. Still, he knew that this was a physique inspection machine. It was just a machine that was designed for martial warriors. As compared to martial disciples, the physique of martial warriors would undergo huge changes. Thus, their physical inspection was far more complex. The production cost of this machine should be at least a few million. It was more than 10 times the cost of the physique inspection machines for martial disciples. Wang Teng took off his Ultraman mask. Based on the procedure, he came in front of the ATM-style machine and placed his identification card in the sensing area. Please scan your fingerprint and retina. Wang Teng listened to the instruction and pasted his hands on the two palm drawings in front of him. At the same time, he looked right into the camera in front. Fingerprints collected. Beep, retina scanning completed. Verifying identity. Approximately 3 minutes later, the voice sounded again. Identity verified. Wang Teng, 17 years old. Citizen of China. No criminal records. Clean background. Meet the 108 requirements to become a martial warrior. Verification passed. Please enter the physique inspection device for your physique inspection. Even though he knew that there was nothing wrong with his identity, Wang Teng was still a little nervous. He only let out a small breath of relief when he heard that he had passed the verification. He stepped into the physique inspection device next. The device's door closed slowly. It started scanning and inspecting his entire body. Wang Teng didn't know if it was his illusion, but he felt as though there was an invisible hand touching him from head to toe. At the same time, he felt his force nucleus tremble slightly for a moment. The force inside received some stimulation and got a little restless. The inspection ended very quickly. The automated voice rang in his ears again. Inspection ended. Wang Teng, congratulations on becoming a martial warrior. The martial warrior credential is being printed. Please wait patiently. At this moment, outside the entrance of the Martial Warrior Association, a black sedan stopped slowly. A man with spiky hair that looked like steel spikes came down the car. It was the principal of Jixin Martial House, Fu Tiandao. A refined middle-aged man came forward and welcomed him. He smiled and said, "Old Fu, you're really hard to meet. I invited you multiple times, but you only agreed to come today. There are many things to take care of at the Martial Arts Academy. I can't leave as I want," Fu Tiandao replied concisely. Seriously? The refined man felt a little helpless. He raised his fingers and pretended to tap the spiky hair man. Didn't you say that you have prepared top-quality jade dragon tea from Xinghua continent? Hurry up and lead the way. Fu Tiandao looked at the refined man sideways as he said. Come, I've already prepared it. I was just waiting for you to come. The refined man laughed. He raised his hand and walked into the huge building first. While the two of them were chatting and walking, there was an uproar around them. Isn't that the principal of the Donghai branch Jixin Martial House, Fu Tiandao? To see him once is better than to hear about him 100 times. His aura is overwhelming. Of course. Do you know how powerful he is? He's able to represent the Donghai branch of Jixin martial house. Donghai City is a huge and important city. This proves how powerful his ability is. Who is that refined man? He's actually able to invite Fu Tiandao over. Idiot, that is the president of the Donghai Branch Martial Arts Association, President Qin Hangsuan. Oh my god, I'm blind. The real person is right in front of me, but I didn't recognize him. He is a powerful figure too. Discussions rang out in the vicinity. Even after Fu Tiandao and Qin Hangsuan had left for a long time, everyone was still indulged in talking about their achievements. Everyone knew about their achievements, but as the iconic figures of Donghai City, the citizens of Donghai City never stopped pursuing and flattering them. Fu Tiandao and Qin Hangsuan chatted with each other as they took the lift to the building's highest floor. They arrived at Qin Hangsuan's office. The moment they entered the office, they could see an entire wall of floor-to-ceiling windows. It was right in front of the entrance. From this office, one could get a bird's-eye view of the entire Donghai City. It felt like standing on the highest peak and looking at the smaller mountains below. The coffee table was placed beside the floor-to-ceiling window. "Have a seat," Qin Hangsuan said casually. "Your place is not bad," Fu Tiandao said calmly. He walked in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and gazed at the busy streets below. Qin Hangsuan sat down and started making tea in a natural and graceful manner. The faint fragrance of tea wafted in the room. He said, "Sigh. It's lonely to be in a high position. It doesn't feel good to stay in this office every day." "Pretentious." Fu Tiandao sneered. "Nothing good comes out of your mouth. Have some tea. Have some tea." Qin Hangsuan felt helpless as he poured tea for Fu Tiandao. Fu Tiandao sat down and took a sip. He savored it with closed eyes. Then, he opened his eyes and said, "Indeed, this is a good tea. Of course. I had to put down this old face of mine before I could take some tea from the governor," Qin Hangsuan said proudly. "Where is Governor Zhang now?" Fu Tiandao raised his eyebrows and asked. "The last time I saw him, Governor Zhang was preparing to break through to the general stage." Qin Hangsuan turned serious. "Oh? Is he confident?" Fu Tiandao's expression changed, and he asked anxiously. "Based on what he said, he's around 60% confident," Qin Hangsuan replied. 60%? That's too low. Why didn't he wait for a while longer? Fu Tiandao frowned and took a deep breath. "I heard that Governor Li of Jinlin has already reached general stage half a month ago." Qin Hangsuan suddenly dropped an atom bomb. "What? Are you serious?" Fu Tiandao jumped to his feet. Sit down, sit down. Of course, it's real. Do you think I will make such a mistake?" Qin Hangsuan rolled his eyes. "We have another general now. Congratulations to my country." Fu Tiandao's eyes were shimmering. "It's indeed a matter worth celebrating." Qin Hangsuan nodded in agreement. "However, Governor Zhang is too reckless. How could he act on impulse?" Fu Tiandao changed the topic back. He seemed a little worried. "You know that those two have been arch enemies since they were in university. They fought for their entire life. How could Governor Zhang take this matter calmly?" Qin Hangsuan explained with a bitter smile. "That is true. Fu Tiandao couldn't do anything either. I hope that Governor Zhang will be able to get through this obstacle smoothly. At that time, Donghai will be able to have another general stage martial warrior." Chapter 51, The Interest of the Two Bosses. Chapter 51, The Interest of the Two Bosses. While Fu Tiandao and Qin Hangsuan were chatting casually, the computer in the office gave off a sound. "What's the matter?" Fu Tiandao looked at Qin Hangsuan. "Let me take a look." Qin Hangsuan got up and walked in front of the computer. He saw a message pop up on his screen. He scanned the message and felt astounded. "Old Fu, come over and take a look," he shouted at Fu Tiandao, who was at the side. Fu Tiandao got up and walked over. This person became a martial warrior at 17 years old. Fu Tiandao was also slightly shocked when he saw the message on the screen. Upon reading Wang Teng's name, he frowned. Wang Teng. This name sounds a little familiar. Oh, do you know him? Qin Hangxuan asked in surprise. Fu Tiandao thought for a moment before continuing abruptly, I remember him. A few days ago, one of my staff handed me a data report. If these two don't share the same surname and name, I think the report I received was about him. Open the surveillance camera to take a look. We will know if it's the same person. Qin Hangxuan operated his computer, and within a second, the scene in Wang Teng's room was projected on the opposite wall. That's right, it's him. He looks the same as his picture. Fu Tiandao immediately recognized Wang Teng. Oh, right, what report were you talking about just now? The report shows that this fellow rose from a normal person to an advanced stage in less than a month after he joined our martial arts academy, Fu Tiandao replied. Haha, Wang Teng must have started his cultivation before he joined your martial arts academy. Look at his background. He's the third generation of Donghai's Wang family. His family probably doesn't lack resources and can let him practice martial arts, Qin Hangxuan smiled and said. I think so too. At first, I wanted to observe him for a while more, but he has already become a martial warrior. It looks like he's really a genius, Fu Tiandao exclaimed. It was rare to see a 17-years-old martial warrior. Seems like there will be a black horse in the martial arts exam this year. Qin Hangxuan smiled. Shall we take a look? Fu Tiandao tried his best to remain calm and indifferent, but he did seem very interested in this young lad. Sure, let's go together. Wang Teng didn't know that the moment he became a martial warrior, he had received the attention of two bosses. It was really scary. 10 minutes later, the printing of the martial warrior identification was completed. Looking at the black booklet in his hand, he smiled in glee. Wang Teng wore his 3D Ultraman mask and left the Martial Arts Association. When he returned to the school, the last morning lesson hadn't ended yet. Everyone was still in class, so Wang Teng didn't disturb the teacher's lecture. He arrived at the little forest and logged into his dobae. He entered his martial warrior credential and placed his order. This Master Lu was quite interesting. He didn't allow his customers to place orders if they didn't have a martial warrior credential. You could be stubborn with anything, but when it came to money, one must be flexible. Forget it. Looking at the other party's tone, he probably doesn't lack money. After placing the order, Wang Teng sent a message to hurry the stall owner, I've already placed my order. Please send the item as soon as possible. Master Lu, alright dear epsilon equals omicron asterisk. The other party responded with one sentence. After some time, the lesson ended. Wang Teng met Suji and his other friends in the cafeteria for lunch. He also saw Li Rongcheng and Yuan Zhenghua, whom he hadn't seen for a few days. The moment Li Rongcheng saw Wang Teng, his face turned black. After that day, Zhou Baiyun actually came to ask him about Wang Teng. At first, Zhou Baiyun viewed Li Rongcheng with high importance. He felt that he had a chance to win the heart of this third young lady from the Zhou family. He had his whole life ahead planned. He would marry a rich beauty and proceed to the peak of his life. The Zhou family would definitely be a great help to him. At that time, he, Li Rongcheng, would be a famous figure in Donghai City. He wouldn't just be a rich second generation relying on his father. However, Wang Teng, it just had to be Wang Teng again. This fellow had stolen the limelight that was supposed to be his. Even Zhou Baiyun got interested in Wang Teng. Damn it! Li Rongcheng felt annoyed in his heart. Young Master Li, are you here for lunch too? Wang Teng casually greeted Li Rongcheng when he saw him. Humph! Li Rongcheng scoffed. He walked straight ahead. What's the matter? How did I provoke him again? Wang Teng asked Suji, who was beside him, with a confused expression. Who knows? Suji shrugged. During the afternoon rest time, Wang Teng went to practice in the small forest. He only returned to the classroom when the lesson started. It was the last day of the week, so he should give some respect to his teacher. 3 lessons ended quickly. After school, Wang Teng got up and prepared to go home. However, Lin Chuhan stopped him. You, wait for me. She bit her lip and seemed a little embarrassed. But, in the end, she still plucked up her courage and called Wang Teng out. Wang Teng had already noticed that she was a little absent-minded. Hence, when he saw her calling him, he stopped in his tracks. He wanted to know what she had on her mind. Lin Chuhan finished packing her bag and went out of the classroom with Wang Teng. The two walked to a secluded spot with no one around. Lin Chuhan started hesitating again, and her expression kept changing. One moment, she seemed helpless, while the next, she looked resolute. If you have any difficulties, you can just tell me, Wang Teng said in a soft voice. Maybe Wang Teng's gentle attitude had caused Lin Chuhan to cement her resolve. She took a deep breath and said, "Can you lend me some money?" After she said the sentence, Lin Chuhan seemed dejected. A hint of helplessness and bitterness flashed past her eyes. How much do you need? Wang Teng suddenly felt something touching his heart when he saw her expression. This girl had a hard life. He believed that Lin Chuhan must have reached a state of desperation to look for him to borrow money. If not, with her high self-esteem, she wouldn't talk to him about this at all. 150,000. Lin Chuhan found it hard to speak. She hurriedly continued, I know it's a little too much, but I'll definitely return the money to you as soon as possible. After the university entrance exam, I will work part-time. Once I have the money, I will. Wang Teng was a little dumbfounded. He was a bit curious about the reason why Lin Chuhan needed such a huge sum of money. However, Wang Teng didn't probe further. He took out his phone and said, "Give me your Alipay account. I will transfer the money to you now." "Return the money to you." Lin Chuhan heard what Wang Teng said before she finished her sentence. Her eyes turned red, and she took a deep breath to calm down. Then, she forced a smile on her face and said, "Thank you. I will return the money to you as soon as possible." She emphasized this once again, as if this was the only way she was able to keep the remnants of self-esteem left in her heart. "There's no hurry. Just do what your strength allows." Wang Teng nodded. He scanned her Alipay account and transferred the money over. Many things were different in this world. For instance, Alipay supported transfers of large sums of money. There was no limit to the sum. Lin Chuhan thanked him once again and held her phone tightly. The 150,000 RMB felt extremely heavy in her hand. Their family didn't even have this much savings during their prime. To a family like Wang Teng's, a few 100,000 might just be their pocket money. However, many normal families might not be able to save this amount of money even after many years. I wonder what difficulty she's facing. Wang Teng looked at Lin Chuhan's back view as he wondered to himself. He felt a little worried, so he followed her secretly. Chapter 52, I just came to get rid of a few flies. Chapter 52, I just came to get rid of a few flies. Wang Teng followed Lin Chuhan all the way and noticed that she was just going home. He saw her entering her house from afar. Just as he was planning to leave, Wang Teng noticed a bunch of people walking over. The leader of the group was a bald man wearing a black suit. There were a few youngsters following him. They looked like gangsters. Wang Teng stopped in his tracks and lit a cigarette. He stood at the side of the road and started smoking. "What are you looking at? You little brat." The bald man wearing a black suit saw Wang Teng staring at them, so he scolded him fiercely. Wang Teng didn't say anything. He turned his head away. The bald man wearing a black suit didn't pester him, either. He just walked into Lin Chuhan's house angrily. Lin Chuhan's house was a 3-floor apartment. It looked really old. The first floor was the shop front, where they had opened a small convenience stall. The bald man had barged into Lin Chuhan's family stall. He grabbed a bottle of Coke and took a swig. The middle-aged lady in the shop should be Lin Chuhan's mother. She stood at the side fearfully, not daring to say a single word to stop the man. After burping, the bald man turned and looked at the middle-aged woman. He said, "How is it? Have you prepared the money?" "Boss, my girl is already borrowing money from our relatives. Please spare us a few more days," the middle-aged woman pleaded. "Spare a few more days? I've already spared you 3. Is that not enough?" "Huh." The bald man wearing a black suit glared at the woman and kicked a box filled with candies beside him. The candies instantly flew and scattered everywhere. "I think that you don't plan to return the money, right?" "Boss, we really have no such intentions. We just haven't gathered all the money yet. Please give us 2 or 3 more days. Please." The middle-aged woman got frightened and shrank in a corner. Her eyes were red as she spoke. "Stop spouting nonsense. If you don't give me the money today, I'll destroy your stall." The bald man didn't show any intention of softening his attitude. You can't do this. Our entire family relies on this convenience stall for a living. My daughter still needs to take her university entrance exam. If you smash our shop, how are we supposed to live?" The middle-aged woman was so anxious that she started tearing up. "Who cares about your lives? It looks like you can't return the money today. Do you think I'm doing charity? Hey, destroy this place." The bald man wearing a black suit arrogantly sat on the chair and waved his hand. His lackeys were about to smash the shop on his order. "Stop!" A voice came from upstairs. Lin Chuhan ran down the stairs. Upon returning home, she went to the bathroom. The moment she came out, she heard the commotion below and came down in a flurry. As expected, those people were here to look for them again. "Hey!" The bald man's eyes lit up when he saw Lin Chuhan. "Why did you come down?" The middle-aged woman panicked. She hurriedly pulled Lin Chuhan behind her and said to the bald man wearing a black suit, "Boss, my daughter is still young. This matter has nothing to do with her. Don't mind what she said. I don't think that she's young anymore." The bald man stood up, and his gaze roamed Lin Chuhan's body, as if a wolf was looking at its prey. Lin Chuhan didn't back down at all. She stood out from behind the middle-aged woman and said, "My family owes you 150,000, right? I can return it to you now. Take the money and get out of my house." "Haha, you're quite bold. How can you have 150,000? The bald man wearing a black suit gave a contemptuous smile. "You little girl, we don't have so much money." Lin Chuhan's mother frowned. She thought her daughter was fooling around, so she wanted to pull her behind her again. Lin Chuhan's mother understood the bald man's gaze too clearly. They weren't kind people. Her daughter was just a high school student. She couldn't fight with them at all. Lin Chuhan wasn't moved. "Give us the receipt for the loan. I will transfer you the money now." Did this young lady really manage to get the money? She's so pretty, so there might really be someone willing to lend her money, the bald man wearing a black suit muttered to himself softly. He looked at Lin Chuhan's beautiful face that was full of vitality. His heart was burning with desire. He immediately thought of an idea and sneered. "All right. As long as you return the money to us, we will leave. However, 150,000 RMB was 3 days ago. 3 days have passed. Let me calculate. Now, you owe us 200,000. What do you think, little girl? Do you have 200,000? 200,000? It's been only 3 days. How did it increase to 200,000? Lin Chuhan's mother's face turned pale. It was hard to tell if it was because of fear or anger. You're despicable. Lin Chuhan's body trembled in anger. At first, they had only borrowed 100,000 from these people. Then, they told them that the interest for 3 months was 50,000. Their family couldn't afford to offend these loan sharks, so they bowed down to fate and went around asking for money. But, after so many years, they had already borrowed money from most of their relatives. All of them knew the condition of Lin Chuhan's family. Lin Chuhan's father was paralyzed in bed and didn't have the ability to work. Her younger sister was down with a strange illness. Only Mother Lin had opened a convenience stall to support the entire family. Lending money to their family was like throwing it into a bottomless pit. They might be able to return small amounts of money, but no one dared to lend them a huge sum. A while ago, when Lin Chuhan took so much effort to put down her ego and borrow 150,000 from Wang Teng, she thought that she could finally clear this bad debt. She didn't expect the other party to be so despicable. Now, they wanted to add another 50,000 RMB because they had delayed payment for 3 days. Little girl, don't talk nonsense. I'm such a righteous person. How can I be despicable? The bald man said nonchalantly. This is illegal. I can sue you. Lin Chuhan gritted her teeth. Go ahead. I won't stop you. However, it might be hard for you to continue opening your shop in the future. The bald man sneered. You. Lin Chuhan pointed at him. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. It looks like you still can't pay us back. This is difficult. How about this? I don't have a girlfriend. If you're willing to be my woman, I can forfeit this loan for your family, the bald man sniggered and said. That's impossible. Don't even think about it. Even if I can't open my shop anymore, don't even think about touching my daughter. Mother Lin was like a tigress exploding in anger. She blocked Lin Chuhan behind her and glared at the bald man wearing a black suit. Lin Chuhan's expression had also turned ugly. There was a hint of anxiousness in her eyes. She didn't expect the other party to have this intention. She had underestimated the evilness of a person's heart. In that case, we won't be polite anymore. The bald man gave a sinister smile. However, before he could finish his sentence, a voice sounded behind him. What do you want to be impolite for? The bald man turned his head. Brat, it's you. Wang Teng. Lin Chuhan also saw the newcomer. For some reason, she found a sense of reliance in her heart. Humph, you know each other. The bald man wearing a black suit squinted and sized up Wang Teng. Are you trying to save the beauty? Save the beauty? Not really, Wang Teng thought for a moment before replying. Ha ha ha, look at how timid he is. The bald man burst out laughing. His lackeys started mocking and jeering at Wang Teng too. I just came to get rid of a few flies, Wang Teng continued calmly. The bald man's face turned black. He was actually looked down upon. The indifferent expression on this brat's face irked him tremendously. You are courting death, he said word by word. Chapter 53, Don't talk nonsense when you plan to run away. Chapter 53, Don't talk nonsense when you plan to run away. How do I court death? Wang Teng tilted his head and asked. The bald man wearing a black suit. The lackeys. Lin Chuhan kept her face straight and tried her best not to laugh when she saw the confused expression of the gangsters. Mother Lin felt that this child was a little naughty. I wonder whose child he is. The bald man wearing a black suit flared up in anger. He pointed at Wang Teng and shouted, Beat him! Beat him to death! The lackeys rushed towards Wang Teng at once. A few of them even took out knives from their pockets. Wang Teng retreated out of the convenience stall. Once he moved, the gangsters also followed him out. They surrounded Wang Teng. Unfortunately, they were just normal people while Wang Teng was a martial warrior. Even if he had been just a martial disciple, dealing with these weaklings would be a piece of cake. He swung his fist and hit two gangsters at once. He knocked them to the floor, and a few teeth fell out of their mouth. Oh! Normal people will drop attributes too? There's even the spirit attribute. Wang Teng was surprised. Be careful! Behind you! Lin Chuhan rushed out and wanted to help. She was an intermediate stage martial disciple, after all. She could deal with these gangsters. But, Wang Teng didn't give her a chance to act as he kicked his leg behind. The three gangsters with knives in their hands, who wanted to slash his waist, flew 3 meters out. They clutched their chests. Blood seeped out of the corner of their lips. Wang Teng hadn't used his full force. Still, the power of his kick was too much for the gangsters to handle. You're a martial disciple. The bald man's expression changed. He didn't expect that his lackeys couldn't even take a single blow from Wang Teng. Brat, you're forcing me to act. The bald man wearing a black suit took off his coat and walked in front of Wang Teng. I'm not forcing you to do anything. You don't have to fight, Wang Teng said. The bald man was stunned. He quickly shook his head to clear the unnecessary thoughts before shouting angrily, FK, don't talk glibly. He circled Wang Teng, seemingly looking for Wang Teng's weakness. Wang Teng stood on the spot and waited for him to act first. However, after circling 2 rounds, the bald man suddenly ran off. He was running away. That was right, he ran away. He ditched his lackeys and ran away without turning back. To show his respect for the man's action, Wang Teng was slightly shocked. Lin Chuhan and Mother Lin were stunned too. When the bald man's lackeys saw their boss running away like a happy pig, they suddenly didn't know what expression to give. Young lad, this matter hasn't ended. Just wait and see. The bald man quickly ran to a corner of the road. Once he felt that he was a safe distance, he stopped, turned around, and shouted. Wang Teng shook his head. He scanned the floor around him and picked up a brick. His action scared the bald man. He turned around and ran away in fright. On the other side, Wang Teng calmly weighed the brick. He took aim for a second and threw the brick out. Wee! The bald man screamed in pain and fell to the ground. Did it really hit his head? Wang Teng looked at the spirit attribute that just dropped and pondered to himself. For some reason, when the lackeys saw this scene, they felt a little elated. Wang Teng slowly walked forward and squatted down to look at the bald man. This is why you shouldn't talk nonsense when you're running away. The bald man wearing a black suit covered his head. He felt his vision getting blurry. He took some time to get rid of this feeling before he raised his head. He glared at Wang Teng viciously. You're dead, brat. You're dead. We have martial disciples in our company too. They're advanced stage martial disciples, and there are a few of them. Just wait to die. Humph, you're quite fierce. Wang Teng smiled. He raised the brick and smashed it on the bald man's face again. Splurt. The bald man's nose broke, and blood splattered out. It was so painful that he kept screaming shrilly like a pig being slaughtered. Wang Teng's eyes lit up. I don't know if I'm dead, but I know that you're definitely dead. While speaking, Wang Teng raised the brick again under the other party's horrified gaze and smashed it down. At the start, the bald man was still quite tough. His gaze was fierce, and he glared at Wang Teng like a ruthless wolf. But, now, he was scared. This youth in front of him looked like a high school student with a smile on his face. His expression was calm and composed, but when he decided to act, it was really terrifying. Stop hitting me. I'm wrong, I will not do it again, please let me go. The bald man's face was severely bruised and swollen. He couldn't speak properly, so he sounded a little tongue-tied. There was only fear left in his mind. This young man was too ruthless. He was really ruthless. Ouch, this is so painful. I didn't want to hit you before, but I feel that you're not very convinced by me. So, I had to hit you reluctantly, Wang Teng said after he stopped beating the man. He didn't want to stop hitting the bald man. Instead, he had to stop because after dropping some spirit attributes, the bald man stopped dropping them no matter how much he hit him. What a pity. In total spirit asterisk 0.4. The bald man looked at the sky. Suddenly, he wanted to cry. Since you're so reluctant, you don't have to hit me. No one is forcing you. Mom, this person must be a devil. I want to go home. So, are you convinced or not? Asked Wang Teng. Yes, who? I'm convinced. The bald man nodded hurriedly. Wang Teng dumped the brick on his head again. Ah! Why are you hitting me now? The man screamed in terror. He was confused. Do you think you're playing mahjong? Who's asking you if you who, in Chinese, fu means convinced and who means a win in mahjong, or not? Wang Teng widened his eyes. The bald man was extremely frustrated. He even wanted to vomit blood. He kept quiet for a long time before saying a single word, yes, fu. That's good. Wang Teng nodded. Unexpectedly, the bald man suffered a knock on his head again. Why? Tears welled up in his eyes. He felt so wronged, but he had nowhere to vent it. For no reason. I just don't like you, Wang Teng explained calmly. The bald man. Give me the loan receipt. The bald man obediently took out the loan receipt. Wang Teng called Lin Chuhan over and passed it to her. Take a look at it and see if this is the correct one. Lin Chuhan went back and confirmed with her mother. She returned and nodded. That's right. This is the one my dad and mom wrote. Wang Teng took it over and scanned it. He then mocked, they borrowed 100,000, and you wanted them to return 200,000. This is much easier than being a robber. He squatted down and waved the brick in front of the bald man's face. In the past, I met 5 people who wanted to rob a bank. They wanted to kill me, but do you know what happened to them in the end? The bald man suddenly remembered a piece of news he had heard a few days ago. A few robbers who robbed a bank got killed by someone. He heard that the person who killed them was a hostage. Also, the hostage was a high school student. The bald man looked at Wang Teng in fear. He couldn't help but tremble, his heart pounding in his chest. Bang! Wang Teng suddenly exerted force in his fingers and broke the brick in his hand. He said, Look, this is what happened to them. Brother, I know my mistake. I was really wrong. Please spare me. The bald man really wanted to cry. He had come to get a loan back and tease a young lady along the way. Why did he have to offend this devil? He must have forgotten to look at the almanac when he went out this morning. That's right, this must be the reason. Wang Teng didn't scare him anymore. He said to Lin Chuhan, transfer the money to him 100,100 RMB. The additional 100 is the interest. Do you have any objections? The last sentence was directed at the bald man wearing a black suit. No, no. The other party shook his head in a hurry. At this moment, he didn't dare to have any objection. He still wanted his head to be on his neck. He had heard that those robbers' heads were smashed into meat paste by the hostage. Oh my God, this was so scary. Lin Chuhan hurriedly transferred the money. Wang Teng took out a lighter and lit up the loan receipt right in front of the bald man. He burnt the whole piece of paper. Chapter 54, Family Background. Chapter 54, Family Background. The bald man in a black suit left with a swollen and bruised face. His heart was filled with injustice and fear. He needed to go back to answer his boss. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get the interest for this loan. The other party was a powerful figure, the heartless kind that might shatter your head if he got angry. He couldn't afford to provoke him. His boss probably didn't want to offend this kind of person as well, right? Fortunately, he got back the loan amount. This trip wasn't a waste. But, his face got smashed by the brick for nothing. Ouch. Pain. Sigh. After getting rid of the loan sharks, Lin Chuhan heaved a sigh of relief. She said to Wang Teng, thank you for helping me just now. It's nothing. Wang Teng shook his head. When he kept his lighter, he took the opportunity to light a cigarette. Don't smoke anymore, Lin Chuhan suddenly said. Huh. Smoking is bad for health, Lin Chuhan replied. That is scary. Let me smoke a bit to calm down, Wang Teng answered. I'm just teasing you. Wang Teng threw the cigarette on the ground and extinguished it with his feet. It wasn't appropriate for him to smoke in front of a lady. Oh, right. Why are you here? Lin Chuhan suddenly asked. She was curious about his perfect timing. Will you believe me if I say that I followed you? Wang Teng smiled. Lin Chuhan's heart jumped. She turned her head and felt her ears turning warm. She put down her hair to cover it up. I'm not talking to you anymore. I'll go and take a look at my mom. Lin Chuhan ran back to the convenience store and explained everything to her mother. She told her that the loan sharks were gone and the loan receipt had already been burnt. Mother Lin hugged Lin Chuhan and cried in joy. She almost went crazy from the torment these people had given her the past few days. Oh right, little Han, who did you borrow the money from? Tell him that even though we don't have so much money now, we will definitely return it to him as quickly as possible. Mother Lin wiped her tears and said. I borrowed it from him. Lin Chuhan looked in Wang Teng's direction. Ah, he's just a young man. Where did he get all the money from? Mother Lin was surprised. His family runs a company, Lin Chuhan explained. Mother Lin was enlightened. Then, she suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, Little Han, you? Lin Chuhan looked at her mother's expression and immediately knew what she was thinking. She stomped her feet and complained sweetly. Mom, what are you thinking? He's my table buddy. All right, all right, all right. I'm not thinking about anything. Mom is not thinking of anything, Mother Lin said quickly. You little girl, why aren't you inviting him to our house? He did our family a huge favor. I want to personally thank him. Lin Chuhan wanted to call Wang Teng over, but she noticed that he was already walking towards them. My mom says that she wants to thank you personally, she told Wang Teng. That's right, little Teng. I hope you don't mind me calling you this way. I really have to thank you for this time. If not, our family wouldn't have known what to do. Mother Lin was full of gratitude. I don't mind. Auntie, Chuhan is my table buddy. She has helped me a lot, so I should help her when she has difficulties, Wang Teng replied. Good, good, little Han is lucky to have a table buddy like you. The more Mother Lin looked at Wang Teng, the more she liked him. This was a good child. He was just a little naughty. But, you could tell that he was a responsible person who had a bright future. He was polite, and he took care of little Han well. If he could be her son-in-law, that would be great. During the martial arts era, one could get married at 18 years old. Mother Lin felt that she could start considering her daughter's marriage. Stay here tonight for dinner. Mother Lin suddenly got enthusiastic. Auntie will go and buy some ingredients immediately. Little Han, take care of little Teng. After she finished speaking, she didn't give Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan any time to react. She directly rushed out of the door. Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan exchanged glances with each other. The atmosphere had become a little strange. Why don't I leave first, said Wang Teng. Leave your head. My mom has already gone out to buy food. If you leave, how will I explain to her when she comes back? Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. Just find a random excuse. For instance, you can tell her that I have some urgent matters to attend to. Wang Teng gave her some suggestions. Lin Chuhan looked at Wang Teng. Why doesn't this fellow want to stay at my house? She was a little embarrassed, for sure, but Wang Teng's unwilling expression made her a little uncomfortable and unhappy. You can explain to her personally if you want to. I'm not explaining. Lin Chuhan glared at Wang Teng. All right, it's just a meal. I, Wang Teng, am not afraid at all. This was what Wang Teng said, but he looked as though he was going to the execution field. Lin Chuhan finally understood his emotions when she saw his reaction. This fellow wasn't actually unwilling, he was just a little scared. Usually, he didn't seem afraid of anything. She almost forgot that he was a teenage boy too. She couldn't help but laugh secretly behind his back. Wang Teng stood in the shop, uncertain of what to do. He looked at the candies scattered on the ground and went over to pick them up. Lin Chuhan regained her senses. Her gaze turned gentle as she looked at Wang Teng's back view. She squatted down and started cleaning the candies with him. I will transfer you the remaining money later. She remembered the leftover money and said. Okay. Wang Teng nodded. As for the 100,000 RMB, I will work part-time during the summer vacation to return it to you, Lin Chuhan continued. That's not right. It's 100,100 RMB, Wang Teng smiled and replied. Yes, it's 100,100. You're such a miser. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. Ha ha ha, Wang Teng laughed casually. He didn't mind her reaction. Lin Chuhan didn't realize that the respect hidden in his words was what allowed them to continue their relationship as normal. They didn't suffer any estrangement because of this matter. After some time, Mother Lin came back with the ingredients. She was carrying many bags in her hands and had bought a lot of fish meat. Little Teng, you can sit upstairs with Chuhan. I'll go and make food. Mother Lin greeted them before she got busy in the kitchen. Come on, let's go upstairs. Lin Chuhan led Wang Teng up the stairs. Isn't Uncle around? Wang Teng asked. Lin Chuhan bit her lips as she said, he's here. I'll bring you to see him. Wang Teng saw Lin Chuhan's father. He was a drunk and skinny man, and his legs were gone. How did your father become like this? Wang Teng was really shocked. My father used to be a martial warrior. One day, after coming back from the Xingu continent, he became like this. His teammates managed to save him after much difficulty, but his legs were gone. Even his force nucleus was broken. He came a crippled, Lin Chuhan explained in low spirits. This Wang Teng knew that the martial arts world wasn't as beautiful as the public made it out to be, but he didn't expect it to be so cruel. He even felt a little frightened when he saw the ghastly wounds on Father Lin's body. Also, he didn't think Lin Chuhan's father could be a martial warrior. Since you know how brutal the martial arts world is, why do you still practice martial arts? Why do you still want to take part in the martial arts exam? Wang Teng couldn't help but ask her. I want to take revenge. Lin Chuhan closed the door and gritted her teeth as she said. It's caused by someone. Wang Teng was flabbergasted once again. My dad's teammates say that he became like this because their opponents had set a trap, Lin Chuhan explained. Chapter 55, Demon Lotus Poison Body. Chapter 55, Demon Lotus Poison Body. Wang Teng suddenly remembered that in his past life, he had heard about Lin Chuhan's paralyzed father. Unexpectedly, in this lifetime, her situation was still the same. But, in this lifetime, Lin Chuhan's father was a martial warrior and became paralyzed because of other people's plots. Oh right, what about your father's teammates? Don't they know the situation in your family? Asked Wang Teng. In the past, they helped us a lot. However, most of their time is spent in Xingu continent. Sometimes, they might not be able to come back for a few months. This time, they are already away for half a year. Half a month ago, my younger sister's illness suddenly flared up. My mom had no choice. With other people's recommendation, she could only borrow money from those people to pay for my sister's treatment fees, Lin Chuhan said. You still have a younger sister? What illness does she have? Wang Teng realized that he knew nothing about Lin Chuhan's family. I always had a younger sister. You just don't know about her. Her illness, it will be good if we could know what illness it is. That way, we won't be at a loss of what to do. Lin Chuhan sighed. As she spoke, she brought Wang Teng to the door of another room and knocked. Chuxia, I brought a friend over. Can I come in? Come in. A young lady's faint voice came from the room. The way she spoke was very strange. She spoke a word for word, but there was no break in between the words. She seemed a little feeble and lifeless. If one suddenly heard this voice in the middle of the night in the dark, they would probably pee in their pants. Wang Teng felt goosebumps appearing on his skin. Lin Chuhan gave a dry laugh. Please don't mind her. My sister has always been like this. She pushed the door open. Creak. The wooden door gave a shrill screech due to the friction on the hinges. The room was dark. The curtain was closed tightly, and no ounce of light was able to enter the room. Wang Teng scanned the room. There was no human in sight at all. But he saw a sea of bubbles. Wang Teng was dumbfounded in an instant. Attribute bubbles filled up the entire room. They were on the ground, the table, the chair, the bed, in front of the cupboard. They were everywhere. The room was densely populated with big and small bubbles. Wang Teng swallowed his saliva. He couldn't wait to enter the room. Don't. Lin Chuhan stopped him in a hurry. Then, she reminded him, I think you better follow behind me. Remember not to get too close later. Why? Wang Teng was puzzled. I'll tell you later, said Lin Chuhan in a low voice. Then, she entered the room first and spoke to a corner between the legs of the bed and the wall. Chuxia, sis is coming in. Wang Teng followed her gaze and finally saw a young lady hugging her knees in a blind spot at the corner of the bed. Her head was buried between her knees. She had long black hair, flowing straight down smoothly. The hair was long, black, and straight. He looked at Lin Chuhan. Yes, they looked the same. Then, his focus turned to the attribute bubbles scattered around him. He was already full of anticipation. What kind of attribute bubbles are these? This was the first time he saw a normal person dropping so many attribute bubbles. Even more, these bubbles had dropped naturally. This was very abnormal. Could it be related to Chuhan's younger sister's strange illness? Wang Teng guessed secretly. Then, he lightly touched the bubbles beside him. Poison Force *2. Poison Force *1. Demon Lotus Poison Body *1. Instantly, Wang Teng felt something changing in his body. He sensed a strange, rare force in this world. Poison Force. This kind of force actually existed? Wang Teng was dumbfounded. After that, the poison force entered Wang Teng's body. He had never practiced any poison force skill scriptures before, so the poison force instantly exploded and started running helter-skelter in his body. Damn it, Wang Teng was astounded. If someone observed the skin on his body and his face, they would notice that there was a layer of purple-red color in them. He looked as though he got poisoned. However, the occult energy immediately pacified the poison force and congregated all of it in the force nucleus. It soon formed an equilibrium with the other three forces in the nucleus. The strange color on his skin subsided within a second like the waves of the sea. What's wrong with you? Lin Chuhan turned her head and asked. Oh, I'm fine. Wang Teng regained his composure and smiled. At the same time, the young lady squatting in the corner seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head and curiously looked at Wang Teng. Wang Teng's heart jumped a little when he saw the young lady's appearance. The frame of her face was very similar to Lin Chuhan's. She should be a pretty lady too. However, there were purple-red poison spots on both sides of her cheeks. They covered more than half of her face. The poison spots were rough and bumpy. They looked extremely disgusting. They destroyed all the beauty on the face and even made it hideous and terrifying. It was hard to look at her face for long. Wang Teng stared into the eyes of the young lady. His heart skipped a beat, but he didn't feel any loathing towards her. He just felt that the young lady was very pitiful. She was at the prime of her life, but she could only hide in the darkness of her room. She couldn't live like a normal person. She didn't even dare to take a single step out of her house. Wang Teng could imagine how much hate and jeers she must have received in the past. This should be the strange illness Lin Chuhan was talking about. Demon Lotus Poison Body. This must be a very rare physique. If it wasn't, Lin Chuhan's father would have found a cure a long time ago since he was a martial warrior. They wouldn't be at a loss even until now. If the martial warriors couldn't find a solution for this kind of physique, the current medical industry wouldn't be able to find a cure either. The martial arts era and the technology era were two different systems. Before the martial arts era started, this physique had never appeared. Therefore, there were no successful cases of treatment in the medical industry. The solution might only be found in the Xingu continent. Sister, who is he? The young lady sized up Wang Teng again. However, the feeling she had just now had disappeared. A hint of disappointment flashed in her eyes. His name is Wang Teng. He's my friend. Lin Chuhan squatted down in front of the young lady, but she didn't get too close to her. There was at least 1 meter distance between them. Wang Teng kind of understood why Lin Chuhan didn't allow him to get close to her younger sister. Right now, he could feel poison force continuously surging out of the young lady's body. The air around her was saturated with poison force. If an ordinary person got too close, they would definitely get affected. If the interaction was too long, they would be poisoned. In severe cases, they might die immediately. This was how horrifying the demon lotus poison body was. Is he my brother-in-law? The young lady suddenly asked Lin Chuhan. Brother-in-law? Lin Chuhan was dumbstruck. Her entire face turned red within a split second. Stupid girl, what are you saying? He's not your brother-in-law. Wang Teng almost burst out laughing. This young lady was such a good assist. Oh, the young lady tilted her head and gave an ambiguous response. There were no emotional changes on her face. Lin Chuhan felt helpless. She got up and said to Wang Teng, "This is my younger sister, Lin Chuxia. Don't mind what she said. Why are you so nervous?" Wang Teng made fun of her. "I'm not nervous." Lin Chuhan got nervous because of his stare. Wang Teng smiled. Then, he stepped past Lin Chuhan and walked towards Lin Chuxia. "Don't go over." Lin Chuhan wanted to stop him quickly. "It's fine." Wang Teng waved his hand. Before Lin Chuhan could block him, he had already squatted down in front of Lin Chuxia. He lifted his hand. Hello. Chapter 56, Am I Walking in the Wrong Direction? Chapter 56, Am I Walking in the Wrong Direction? Lin Chuxia's eyes widened slightly as she looked at Wang Teng's stretched out hand in front of her. Lin Chuhan was also shocked by Wang Teng's sudden action. She was the one who had the best understanding of her younger sister's condition. Anyone who got within 1 meter radius of her would get affected, much less direct body interaction. She wanted to stop Wang Teng, but Lin Chuxia opened her mouth first. "Aren't you afraid of me?" "Afraid of what?" asked Wang Teng. "Afraid of my face? Afraid of the air around me? Look at me. Do you think I seem affected?" Wang Teng smiled and asked. "Lin Chuhan, who was standing beside them, was astounded. She stared at Wang Teng in disbelief. Indeed, a normal person would have already felt uncomfortable at such a close distance. Their faces would start turning green too. However, Wang Teng looked unaffected. Wang Teng, you. It's probably because I always drink goji berry tea, so my immunity is better, Wang Teng said in all seriousness. What do you mean by your immunity is stronger because you drink goji berry tea? Do you think I'm stupid? Why can't you be more serious? This is a serious matter. Lin Chuxia observed him for a long time. At last, her eyes lit up, and she continued, you really look all right. She slowly stretched out her hand. She was a little hesitant at first, but she still held Wang Teng's palm. The next second, Lin Chuxia was dumbstruck. She didn't know how to explain this feeling. A cold stream of air seemed to have stirred up in her body. It started flowing around her limbs and bones, rejuvenating her. Just as she was about to inquire about it, she saw Wang Teng winking at her mysteriously. The words at the edge of her lips stopped right there. Wang Teng smiled gently and released Lin Chuxia's hand. He then stood up. At the same time, he didn't forget to collect the attribute bubbles around her. Demon Lotus Poison Body *7. Poison Force *15. Undoubtedly, the number of attribute bubbles around her body was the most. After picking up everything, Wang Teng felt that the Demon Lotus Poison Body within him was becoming more and more complete. The poison force in his body had also increased. On the other hand, Lin Chuxia felt the pressurizing and sticky feeling in the air around her, which made her feel like there was a layer of liquid covering her, disappear suddenly. But, she didn't probe further. She just curiously sized up Wang Teng. A bud of hope had bloomed in her heart. Lin Chuhan had been observing Wang Teng from the start. She keenly noticed that he wasn't affected even after the physical interaction. While she heaved a sigh of relief, she felt even more puzzled. Wang Teng, what on earth is happening? Why aren't you affected by my sister's weird illness? I don't know either. Maybe it's really because my immunity is stronger. Wang Teng didn't tell Lin Chuhan the truth. Right now, he didn't know how to solve Lin Chuxia's illness. If he said anything, it would just make Lin Chuhan happy for nothing. He would tell her when he had some direction. It wouldn't be too late then. As for Lin Chuxia, he let her know about it because he wanted her to have some hope. If a young lady like her lived her life hopelessly every day, there would be problems sooner or later. Lin Chuhan curiously sized up Wang Teng. If you really know something, I hope that you can tell me. This is extremely important to my family, she said seriously in the end. Sister, don't make things difficult for brother-in-law, said Lin Chuxia. I've already said that he's not your brother-in-law. Lin Chuhan was speechless. Don't worry. If I really have a solution, I will tell you right away, Wang Teng promised. Lin Chuhan nodded. She seemed a little dejected when she saw that Wang Teng didn't have a solution. After some time, she lifted up her spirits and squatted down. She then said to Lin Chuxia in a serious tone, Chuxia, don't worry. I've already applied for the martial arts exam. I'll definitely become a martial warrior in the future and help you to find a treatment for your strange illness. Sister, I thought that mom doesn't allow you to practice martial arts. Lin Chuxia exclaimed in surprise. Lin Chuhan hurriedly raised her forefinger and placed it beside her lips. Shh, speak softer. You can't let mom know about this matter. Wang Teng was speechless. Why are you asking your younger sister to speak softer? Who was the one speaking so loudly just now? However, he finally understood why Lin Chuhan didn't tell her mother about her application for the martial arts exam. What happened to Lin Chuhan's father must have stimulated Mother Lin greatly. As a mother, how could she allow her daughter to follow in her husband's footsteps? Even if there was just a slight possibility, she would kill the problem in the cradle. Dinner wasn't ready, so Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan stayed in the room and chatted with her. Lin Chuhan was happy that another person was hanging around with Lin Chuxia. Usually, only Mother Lin and she were able to accompany Lin Chuxia. This young lady was too lonely. Wang Teng used the free time in the middle of the chat to pick up all the attribute bubbles in the room. Demon Lotus Poison Body *5. Poison Force *12. He pulled out his attributes panel to take a look. Spirit, 26. Talent, Beginner Stage Fire Talent, 11/300, Beginner Stage Ice Talent, 13/300, Beginner Stage Earth Talent, 12/300, Spiritual Sight, Beginner Stage 1.1/10, Demon Lotus Poison Body, 15/10,000. 30/100 Poison, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior. Overall Battle Power, 218. He could see the additional Demon Lotus Poison Body in his talent column. Wang Teng felt that this physique was powerful. He looked at its upper limit 10,000. How long was he supposed to collect this attribute? But, it also reflected how extraordinary and amazing this Demon Lotus Poison Body was. Then, he turned to look at the Poison Force. It had already reached 30 points, higher than the Ice Force and Earth Force. This poison baby Lin Chuxia had plenty of reserves. Wang Teng couldn't help but exclaim to himself. At this moment, he already had a general plan of how to use the Poison Force. In the future, while fighting with his opponents, he would secretly mix some Poison Force into his other forces. He would poison his opponents before they could understand what happened. Tisk, this is perfect. He seemed to be walking further and further on the path of becoming a sinister fellow. Am I walking in the wrong direction? Wang Teng examined his conscience and asked himself. After some time, Mother Lin finished cooking dinner and called them to eat. When she saw Wang Teng and Lin Chuxia interacting harmoniously, she was elated. She even asked Wang Teng to visit their house more often in the future. On the dinner table, only Mother Lin, Lin Chuhan, and Wang Teng were present. Father Lin was dead drunk. He was unconscious now. Lin Chuxia wasn't able to join them. Mother Lin had carried the dishes into the room for her. On the dining table, Wang Teng felt really uncomfortable because of Mother Lin's enthusiasm. The rice bowl in front of him was piled high with rice, looking like a small hill. Wang Teng was dumbstruck. Lin Chuhan laughed secretly at the side when she saw Wang Teng's awkward expression. After dinner, Wang Teng almost ran away in a flurry. Remember to come often to play, Mother Lin reminded him as she sent him to the door. Lin Chuhan and Wang Teng walked to the main road together. Wang Teng's sports car was parked at the side of the road. He stopped walking and opened the car door. Hurry up and go home. Lin Chuhan nodded. She said, thank you for everything today. Wang Teng waved his hand and drove away in his car. Lin Chuhan stood rooted on her spot. No one knew what she was thinking. She just blankly stared into space for a long while. Chapter 57, Round Face Fat Chicken, Mission Guarantee. Chapter 57, Round Face Fat Chicken, Mission Guarantee. Translator Hen-IE Translations Editor Hen-IE Translations. After leaving Lin Chuhan's house, Wang Teng drove his car towards Jixin Martial House. Before this, he had called his family. He found another excuse to throw them off. He didn't dare to tell his parents that he ate at Lin Chuhan's house. If not, based on how gossipy his parents were, he honestly didn't know what they would do. He didn't even dare to think about it. Not long after, he arrived at Jixin Martial House. Wang Teng went straight to the third floor of the training building. He started collecting attribute bubbles. After one night and the accumulation of the previous nights, his basic footwork, basic blade skill, basic sword skill, and basic fist skill had finally reached the presence enlightenment stage. Now, a casual punch of his fist, slash of his sword, and wave of his blade came along with the force of presence. In a battle, he was able to frighten his opponent with his presence first. Even his footwork possessed the ability of illusion. It became even harder to predict his movements. Although they were all basic battle techniques, once they reached the presence enlightenment stage, they were able to unleash extraordinary potential. Wang Teng felt relieved. Now, his basic battle techniques had attained the peak. He was unable to upgrade them anymore. He also realized that the attribute bubbles of these battle techniques never appeared again. He wasn't able to pick them up even if he wanted to. Farewell forever. I will miss you. Besides this, after the past few days of picking up attributes and today's attribute collection, his basic stick skill reached the big achievement stage. Next would be perfected, mastery, and presence enlightenment. At 11 p.m., Wang Teng left Jixin Martial House and returned home. He finished the supper Li Xiaomei had prepared and went upstairs to take a bath. He felt so comfortable that he breathed out and prepared to lie down to rest. Suddenly, a series of knocks came from outside his window. What is it? Wang Teng jumped up and subconsciously used his spiritual sight to look out of the window. There was a ball of blue light. It wasn't strong, but it was indeed the light of force. Dull blue, what attribute is this? Wang Teng heaved a sigh of relief. This level of force wasn't a threat to him. At the same time, he was confused. He had never seen an attribute in this color before. Knock, knock, knock. The living creature outside the window knocked on the window impatiently. I think it's a bird. But how did it fly here? He went to the window while remaining on full alert. Wang Teng opened the window. It was a Scotland round-face fat chicken. He was slightly shocked. Wang Teng shifted his gaze downwards and saw a rectangular object placed beside the feet of this round-face fat chicken. The object was packaged tightly. There was a line on the package: "Oral delivery, mission guarantee." Delivery. And it says mission guarantee. Is this really the martial arts era? This world is not invaded by the magical world. Wang Teng realized that he was really a frog in a well. He took some time to regain his senses before accepting the fact that this was a delivery. Suddenly, he remembered something and hurriedly took out his phone to contact the owner, Master Lu. He took a picture and sent it to the owner. Wang Teng, is this your delivery? Master Lu, yes, dear. Are you surprised? Are you amazed? Are you happy? The other party responded within a second. Even though it was almost midnight, he still replied immediately. Is this shop owner in front of his computer 24 hours a day? Also, what did he mean by surprised, amazed, and happy? Can he not act so naughty to me? Right now, he finally understood why Master Lu was so secretive. Who would have thought that the delivery would be made by an owl? Was the world of martial warriors so magical? Also, the owner, Master Lu, didn't lie. This delivery was really fast. It was a trans-provincial delivery. It was sent in the afternoon and actually arrived at night. This was amazing. Wang Teng replied, can this round-face fat chicken be eaten? I suddenly want to eat barbecue. Master Lu, round-face fat chicken. Master Lu, barbecue. The other party was utterly stunned. At a moment like this, shouldn't he feel surprised and elated? Why did he want to eat the round-face fat chicken? What kind of mentality was this? What round-face fat chicken? It was an owl. Master Lu, why don't I help you order some food? Omega equals. Wang Teng, the other party actually believed me. At this moment, the round-face fat chicken got even more impatient. It started crowing a few times. It would never guess what kind of evil thoughts the person in front of it had. I'm sorry. Thanks for waiting. After he finished speaking, he remembered that this wasn't a delivery man. It was an owl. However, The owl had a look of disdain on its face. A look of disdain. FK, who could even imagine an owl giving a look of disdain? Wang Teng took a deep breath and tried his best to gather his broken vision of the world. He then untied the package on the owl's feet. Coo, coo. There was a small bag hung around the owl's body. At this moment, the owl used its claws to take a receipt and a pen out from the bag and place them in front of Wang Teng. This round-faced fat chicken was so smart that it made Wang Teng dumbfounded. He scanned through the receipt before signing his name on it. The owl put the receipt and pen back in the bag and cooed. Then, it flew off. It was so swift that it disappeared in the night sky in a blink of an eye. Wang Teng looked at the back view of the round-faced fat chicken. His mind was filled with the owl delivery, mission guarantee. The line kept flashing in his mind. He quickly shook his head. Wang Teng closed the window and went back to his bed. He then excitedly opened the package. A black wooden box was revealed. Weapon carrier casket. Wang Teng stroked the silver runes on the weapon carrier casket. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. The owner was very thoughtful and even gave him a black handbag as a gift. He was able to carry it in his hand or on his back as a backpack. If he placed the weapon carrier casket in the bag and zipped it, other people wouldn't be able to tell what was inside. The next day, it was Saturday. Wang Teng continued his routine of visiting Jixin Martial House. Along the way, he greeted the students that he was familiar with. "Brother Peng, you're really early. How hard-working. Hey, young man, exercise is youth. Hurry up and start practicing." Peng Hai had perspiration all over his face. He revealed his bronze skin and raised his thumb as he gave Wang Teng a wide smile. He was the senior brother who had taught Wang Teng the 9th set of radio exercises. When Wang Teng went to the 3rd floor for the first time, he had met Peng Hai not long after. Upon seeing Wang Teng, the guy was extremely shocked. After all, when he first saw Wang Teng was still a newbie who didn't know how to do the 9th set of radio exercises properly. Well, he still didn't know how to do it. But that wasn't the main point. The most important thing was, Wang Teng became an advanced stage martial disciple. When faced with this question, Wang Teng still used the same reason to slip his way through. He told his senior that he had practiced martial arts before. As for the 9th set of radio exercises, it was all history. Many children from wealthy families didn't like to do this exercise. After all, it was very embarrassing. They had better ways to train their physique. Thus, Peng Hai didn't dwell on this too much. "You little brat came late today. Hurry up and duel with me." When Zhang Xiaoyang saw Wang Teng, his eyes turned into light bulbs. He pulled Wang Teng and wanted to practice his fist skill with him. "Have you forgotten how badly you lost the other time? How could you have the face to fight with me?" Wang Teng teased him. Ever since Wang Teng's basic fist skill entered the mastery realm, Zhang Xiaoyang never beat him anymore. Now, his basic fist skill had reached the presence enlightenment stage. If they had a duel again, my fist skill improved greatly after sparring with you. It's almost at the mastery stage now. This time, I won't lose to you again, Zhang Xiaoyang scoffed and said in a proud tone. "Since you are looking for a beating so wholeheartedly, I'll satisfy you." Wang Teng didn't say anything more. He shook his head and gave him a look of concern, as though he was looking at an idiot. "It's hard to tell who will lose." Zhang Xiaoyang was furious. He clenched his fist and attacked Wang Teng. A few minutes later, Zhang Xiaoyang covered his eyes. "FK, don't you know that you shouldn't hit someone's face? Why are you so vicious? You should feel fortunate that I only hit your face. You attacked the lower part of my body just now. If it was someone I didn't know, I'd have beaten him up until he questioned his life." Wang Teng sneered. Zhang Xiaoyang laughed awkwardly. "Who asked you to be so perverted? You have actually reached the presence enlightenment stage. There's no way I can retaliate. That's why I used this treacherous method. It's the only thing I could use. Tisk, so it's my fault. Who was the one asking for abuse just now? Wang Teng looked at him with contempt. FK. Zhang Xiaoyang was speechless. He indeed seemed to be asking for it just a few minutes ago. He didn't dare to ask Wang Teng for a duel anymore. He muttered to himself as he walked to the side and started practicing his fist skills on his own. Wang Teng shook his head. The gap between the two of them was getting wider and wider. There was no point in sparring with him. He turned around and saw an attribute bubble that had just disappeared. His heart pained for a second before he started collecting all the other bubbles immediately. I, Wang Teng, have never stopped wanting to become stronger. Spirit *0.3. Basic stick skill *3. Blank attribute *3. Spirit *0.5. Huh. Wang Teng was shocked. It appeared. The blank attribute appeared again. Blank attribute *3. Wang Teng thought for a moment and directly added the 3 points of the blank attribute to his spiritual sight. Until now, he had never discovered any attributes that were able to raise his spiritual sight talent. Hence, he could only use his blank attribute. One day ended. Before he slept, Wang Teng pulled out the attributes panel. Enlightenment, 93. Spirit, 31. Talent, Beginner Stage Fire Talent, 11/300, Beginner Stage Ice Talent, 13/300, Beginner Stage Earth Talent, 12/300, Spiritual Sight, Beginner Stage 1.4/10, Demon Lotus Poison Body, 15/10,000. Battle Techniques, Basic Battle Techniques, Presence Enlightenment for Fist, Sword, Blade, Footwork, Basic Stick Skill, Perfected, Gun Skill, Small Achievement, Fire Kirin Sword Skill, Foundation 43/100, Phantom Ice Fist, Foundation 13/100. Overall Battle Power, 221. Wang Teng was satisfied as he looked at the changes on top. Recently, both his enlightenment and spirit had increased, and it had a direct effect on him. His mind felt clearer and sharper, and he seemed to have become quicker in his thinking. After adding 3 blank attributes to his spiritual side talent, it was at 1.4 points now. The number seemed a little sad, but at least it had increased. Also, because Wang Teng only focused on his basic stick skill today, this technique rose really quickly. After 1 day of accumulation, it jumped another level and reached the perfected stage. On the other hand, his gun skill remained the same. Ever since killing the bank robbers, he had never seen another gun skill attribute. Rune guns were popular weapons. Many martial warriors practiced gun skills, and their skills had reached a high degree of technical proficiency. Its power was astonishing. Wang Teng didn't belittle the uses of gun skill. This skill had helped him kill a martial warrior in the past. Thus, if he had a chance, he would increase his gun skill attribute too. Being a sharpshooter was a good persona. Pew, pew, pew. If he couldn't solve something with 1 shot, he'd use 2. It was very tiring to be half dead. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 58, There's one person who has godlike gun skills. Chapter 58, There's one person who has godlike gun skills. Sunday. Owl Marksmanship Club. Wang Teng parked his sports car at the main entrance and threw his car keys to the doorman to park his car. Then, he stepped into the lobby of the club. The Owl Marksmanship Club was a high-class place for the wealthy of the society. It was extremely famous in Donghai. This was the first choice of many wealthy young masters and rich young ladies who loved to play with guns. As the club was crowded with gun enthusiasts, there must be many attributes that would drop. Although most of them were here for thrill and excitement and were not professionals, there were bound to be some who possessed real skills. Wang Teng went to the front desk to finish the application process. He paid the money and immediately became a member of the club. The staff treated him with respect. This was how amazing it felt to become a member. Under the guidance of a beauty wearing a black sheath dress, Wang Teng arrived at the target field. He scanned the surroundings, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Many attribute bubbles were floating on the ground. 1, 2, 3. Wang Teng knew that he didn't waste his trip here. He didn't waste his money to apply for the membership either. The beauty wearing a sheath dress explained some details to him. Then, Wang Teng asked her to leave. He started wandering around the place himself. Gun skill *2. Gun skill *1. Wang Teng almost wanted to laugh out loud when he saw his gun skill attribute increasing continuously. All sorts of marksmanship techniques appeared in his mind. At the same time, his body's familiarity with guns became stronger and stronger. His eyes grew sharper, and his accuracy increased a whole lot. He felt that as long as he held a gun, he would be able to apply some tricky maneuvers easily. He could also shoot an object 100 meters away without breaking a sweat. This feeling was exhilarating. As his gun skill attribute increased without pausing, Wang Teng's hands suddenly got itchy when he saw other people having fun. Thus, he ran to the staff and got himself a gun. He found an empty spot and started fulfilling his addiction. Wang Teng first familiarized himself with the gun in his hand. This was a rune gun from the Owl series. The design was rugged and handsome, with a wild kind of beauty to it. Only people who loved guns would be able to appreciate it, though. He raised his gun and aimed at the target. His actions were smooth. He did everything right from the start to the end in a single move. It seemed as though he was a professional who had played with guns for many years. He pulled the trigger. The body of the gun vibrated. A normal person wouldn't be able to withstand the force of the recoil, but Wang Teng's hand was extremely stable. It didn't shake at all. He didn't stop at just that. Wang Teng fired a few more shots, and his posture didn't change the whole time. However, someone with sharp eyes would be able to notice that he adjusted his wrist and elbow slightly every time he fired. He didn't stay in the same position throughout the entire duration. 10 points. Wang Teng put down his gun while feeling a little unsatisfied. The difficulty was too low. He couldn't enjoy himself thoroughly. He continued picking up attributes. Occasionally, he would fire a few shots to cover up his actions. If not, he would be too conspicuous, attracting other people's attention. Good. Good gun skill. A shout was suddenly heard. Wang Teng walked over and noticed a bunch of people gathered together. They were watching a middle-aged man firing his gun. The man had a number 2 haircut. His face was firm and stern, faintly exuding the aura of a soldier. At this moment, he was hitting the moving targets. He fired occasionally and would hit the bull's-eye every single time. The other non-professionals at the side couldn't help but cheer for him. Finally, someone who has good skills, Wang Teng's eyes lit up. He squeezed through the crowd and inched closer to the man. He then picked up the attributes on the ground. Gun skill *10. Gun skill *7. Gun skill *13. Impressive. The attributes this man dropped were equivalent to the combined attributes Wang Teng picked up from more than 10 non-professionals. Master. This must be a master. This was the difference between a master and an amateur. Wang Teng glanced at his attributes panel. His gun skill had finally jumped from small achievement to the big achievement stage. Its strength had increased greatly. Brother, your gun skill is godlike. After the man finished shooting, someone immediately went forward and started chatting with him. You're speaking too highly of me. My shooting is just slightly more accurate. I don't deserve such praises. I'm not godlike, the man replied humbly. If you're not godlike, who is? A person at the side didn't believe him. You might not believe it, but I've seen someone with godlike gun skills before. That person is a real god. The man was full of exclamations as he recalled some past events. How impressive is that? Someone asked curiously. Have you seen bullets that can change direction in the air? The man with short hair asked mysteriously. 1. Wang Teng was attracted by their conversation. At first, he just wanted to pick up attributes, but now, he couldn't stop himself from listening in on the chatter. Bullets that can change direction. So incredible. Do you think you're filming a fantasy movie? Wait, this isn't a fantasy movie but a martial arts drama. In the martial arts era, anything is possible. The man's question caused everyone to exchange glances with one another. This bunch of amateurs hadn't even seen many powerful gun players, much less a godlike player. The man with short hair was immersed in his memory. Then, he sighed and said, I've seen a person who can do it. That person is the real god of guns. His shooting skills are godlike, but unfortunately, he's too arrogant. He fell into other people's trap and used the skill he was most proud of to kill the woman he loved dearly. His words caused everyone to turn flabbergasted. They saw the look of pity on the man's face. Although they might not have witnessed the scene personally, they felt sad too. Tisk. Wang Teng clicked his tongue. He didn't know what kind of expression to give. What happened after that, someone couldn't help but ask. The other people looked at the man in anticipation. They were all burning with curiosity, wanting to know the development of this story. In the end, he couldn't bear the stimulation and turned crazy. He's in the western suburb mental hospital, the man with short hair said with sorrow. No one had expected this ending. There was a series of agitated sighs. The western suburb mental hospital. Wang Teng muttered the name to himself. There was a glimmer in his eyes. No one knew what plans he had up his sleeve. In the afternoon, after finishing his dinner, Wang Teng went straight to the western suburb mental hospital. The place wasn't hard to find. He drove to the western suburb under the guidance of his GPS and found his destination easily. Wang Teng parked his car and got down. There was an old building in front of him, mostly black and white. The walls were mottled, and metal railings surrounded the building. The paint on the railings was coming off, revealing the rust underneath. Weeds filled up the corners of the walls. It looked as though no one had cleaned this place for a long time. Wang Teng was slightly surprised by how dilapidated this mental hospital was. It was almost deserted. By right, in the current society, shouldn't a mental hospital show more emphasis on its environment? Why was this place like a haunted house in a movie? If someone lived here for a long time, they would get mentally ill, even if they weren't crazy at the start. Wang Teng walked into the mental hospital with his confused thoughts. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but he felt that it was cold and chilly inside. As a martial warrior, his sense of hearing was sharper than a normal person. He stood at the entrance and could faintly hear someone running in the empty corridor while wearing slippers. Tap, tap, tap. Si. Wang Teng couldn't help but shiver. Oh my god. He wondered if he had made the right decision to come to this mental hospital. Chapter 59, A Mental Disorder Patient Dropping Spirit Attribute. What kind of setting is this? Chapter 59, A Mental Disorder Patient Dropping Spirit Attribute. What kind of setting is this? Hello, I want to visit the God of Guns. In the lobby on the first floor of the Western Suburb Mental Hospital, Wang Teng told the nurse at the front desk his purpose for visiting. The nurse didn't respond to him. She was looking down and playing with her phone. Hello. Wang Teng remained patient and opened his mouth again. Hello, your head. The nurse suddenly raised her head. Her face was as round as a pie, and her eyes were narrow. She was glaring at Wang Teng. glaring. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. I think you'll look amazing if you slim down a bit. Really? The nurse's eyes brightened. Of course. Everyone who knows me calls me Mr. Humble. You can believe my words, Wang Teng replied sincerely. I will definitely slim down and prove to everyone. That's right, prove to everyone. Prove to everyone that I look equally ugly after I slim down. Ha 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 ha, the nurse with a big face suddenly laughed maniacally. Are all the staff in this mental hospital this abnormal? Wang Teng looked at the nurse, who was laughing like a lunatic. She laughed until she couldn't breathe properly. At the same time, the powder on her face kept dropping. Can I see the god of gun? He waited until the nurse slowly came to a halt before asking her carefully. God of guns? Which one are you referring to? We have 9 people who claim that they are the god of gun here, the nurse said. Wang Teng instantly felt his head hurting. Once again, he suspected whether he had made the right decision to come to this mental hospital or not. The one that accidentally killed the woman he loved. Wang Teng contemplated his words before he spoke. Oh, you're talking about that poor, unlucky fellow. There was no expression on the nurse's face, but she sounded enlightened. Yes, it's him. That's the one. Wang Teng nodded. I'm sorry, we forbid anyone from visiting anyone in this hospital. The nurse with the fat face lowered her head and started playing with her phone again. Wang Teng felt the veins on his forehead bulging up. Forbid anyone from visiting? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Oh, I noticed that you had a strong desire to talk, so I forced myself to talk to you for a while, the nurse replied without raising her head. I at #%yen % and amp, asterisk. FK, even if I die, I won't have any desire to talk to you. Wang Teng almost choked to death from his complaints. I have never thought that I, Wang Teng, will fall in the hands of this round-faced lady. Humph. He snorted angrily and flicked his sleeve as he left. Wang Teng went back to the marksmanship club and turned his unutterable grief and indignation into motivation. He picked up attributes. Gun skill *5. His gun skill, which was at the big achievement stage, was racing towards the perfected stage. Time flew by when you were busy. At night, Wang Teng went home to have dinner. Then, he drove to the house he rented in the university town to pay a visit to his little egg. Well, it hadn't hatched. He didn't go back to the marksmanship club. Instead, he went to Jackson Marshall House. He stayed there all the way until 11 p.m. Next, Wang Teng went back to the western suburb mental hospital. The western suburb had always been deserted, with few people there. At this time, no trace of humans could be seen. The surroundings were eerily quiet, like a ghost town. Wang Teng felt that this was even more frightening than in the day. In the dark, the mental hospital was like a giant beast lying prone on the ground, waiting for ignorant people to come close. Then, it would devour the person in one bite. Should I go back home? Is it too late to turn around now? He was a little scared, but for the sake of his attributes, Wang Teng took a deep breath and sneaked into the mental hospital. He was resolute and told himself that there was no turning back. There were guards at the entrance, so Wang Teng could only climb the walls. The nurse at the front desk had changed. It wasn't the lady with the round face anymore. Instead, it was a male nurse now. He was leaning against his chair and watching a drama on the television. From the noise, it seemed to be some anti-Japanese drama. Wang Teng made a sound outside the door. The male nurse instantly lifted his head. Who is it? There was no reply for a long time. The nurse stood up and walked towards the door. Wang Teng could hear his footsteps. The instant he stepped out of the door, he knocked the nurse unconscious with the side of his palm. Then, he dragged the person into a corner and pondered for a moment. He took off the nurse's coat and wore it. At the end, he put on a mask. Wang Teng couldn't help but give himself a thumbs up for his wits when he saw his appearance. He lowered his head to evade the cameras and sat down behind the front desk. Wang Teng opened the computer to check the internal records of the mental hospital. He memorized the room number of a few mental patients that seemed like his target. After taking the bunch of keys from the wall, he walked towards the second floor. The corridor was extremely quiet. Wang Teng tried his best to walk softly, but he would still make some slight noises. When the noise entered his ears, he felt a little chilly. The first target, room 203. Wang Teng followed the room numbers and arrived at the entrance of room 203. He glanced through the window. There was a figure lying on the bed, sleeping. He found the keys corresponding to the room and opened the door. A person was lying on the bed and seemed to be in a deep sleep. Beside him, a few attribute bubbles were floating in the air. I didn't expect there to be attribute bubbles that haven't disappeared. Wang Teng's eyes lit up. This was a pleasant and unexpected surprise. These attribute bubbles were probably dropped recently, so they hadn't vanished yet. He came just in time. He discovered that they were spirit bubbles, and their points were quite high. Wang Teng was elated. These are all spirit attributes. Could it be that mental patients will drop the spirit attribute? Wang Teng felt a little puzzled. If his guess was correct, what kind of weird setting was this? He shook his head and walked over, shaking the person on the bed. Hey, get up. It's time for medicine. The person muttered in a daze, I've already taken them. Why am I eating again? Oh, you ate one less medicine just now. When I realized my mistake, I quickly came to give it to you. Wang Teng spouted nonsense. The person took over the 6-flavor Daihuang pills from Wang Teng and put them in his mouth. He swallowed them in a single gulp. Wang Teng had especially bought these 6-flavor Daihuang pills for these poor mental patients to nourish their kidneys. Wang Teng watched him as he swallowed the pills. Then, he asked casually, I heard that your shooting is very accurate. The other party got excited the moment he heard this. You actually know about my ability. Let me tell you, my aim is really accurate. I can shoot an airplane down from the sky. The moment he talked about shooting airplanes, a morbid excitement could be seen on his face. Really? Can you show me? Asked Wang Teng. Of course, watch carefully. As he spoke, he started to take off his pants. He was actually taking off his pants. Just as something disturbing to the eyes was about to happen, Wang Teng hurriedly raised his hand and chopped the person unconscious. Mental patients were indeed frightening. However, at that moment just now, another attribute bubble had dropped from the patient. Maybe he should have let the mental patient continue his demonstration a little longer. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 60, God Says. Chapter 60, God Says. Wang Teng hurriedly shook off the image in his mind. That image was so beautiful that he didn't dare to think about it. He would rather forsake the spirit attribute than see that kind of image. He would grow a sty in his eye. He closed the door and continued to look for the next godlike marksmanship patient. Whether the person earlier is still lying on the ground or not has nothing to do with me. 207, 208. The next room was 209. However, when he went past room 208, the lights inside were on. Wang Teng suddenly saw a familiar person, the nurse with a big face. Why was she in the ward? Wang Teng was puzzled. Could it be that she was actually a patient who sneaked out in the day and pretended to be a nurse at the front desk? He had chatted with a mental patient for such a long time. Wang Teng suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. The entire mental hospital seemed to be engulfed in an evil aura. It was slowly and silently enshrouding him. How unlucky of me! He cursed silently. Wang Teng didn't have any desire to investigate this matter further, so he came to room 209 and opened the door. He walked in directly. Pew, pew, pew. A man was firing in the air in the room. Who are you? Did my platoon leader ask you to reinforce me? He asked Wang Teng excitedly the moment he saw him. Wang Teng looked at the ground filled with attribute bubbles and picked them up silently. Spirit asterisk 0.8. Spirit asterisk 1.5. They were all spirit attributes, without a single gun skill attribute anywhere in sight. It looked like this was a fake god of guns. However, his guess seemed to be right. Mental patients indeed dropped spirit attributes. The person who thought of the setting must be a genius. Wang Teng took a glance at the ceiling. He was speechless. Hey, why aren't you replying to me? Could it be that you're a spy? The man's face was filled with suspicion when he noticed Wang Teng's silence. He pretended to raise a gun and aimed it at Wang Teng. It looked as if he would fire and kill Wang Teng if he answered wrongly. That was right, kill him. This drama king. Looking at the man's expression and the number of spirit attribute bubbles he had dropped, this person must be incurably sick. There was nothing to reply to a patient who was already hopeless. Wang Teng ended the conversation with a karate chop. Sigh, why is it so hard to find a person? Wang Teng closed the door and sighed. Let's continue. He went to the third floor next. The first to the third floor were filled with all kinds of weird patients. Many of them weren't asleep. Most of the lights in the rooms were lit up. There were different dramas in each room. Wang Teng was caught between laughter and tears, but he also felt a chill in the depths of his heart. So many attribute bubbles. Wang Teng was at a loss of what to do when he saw so many attribute bubbles. Once again, he opened a door casually. He saw a patient squatting on the ground. There were many attribute bubbles scattered around him. Time to eat medicine. Time to eat medicine. Wang Teng shouted. Don't disturb me. A faint voice resounded in the room. The person continued squatting in the corner without moving. Wang Teng walked over. He picked up the attributes. Spirit asterisk 1.2. Why are you squatting here? Wang Teng was extremely curious. He couldn't help but ask the man. Because I'm a pile of cow dung. The faint voice sounded again. Oh, oh. Why are you a pile of cow dung? Why can't you be pig dung or sheep dung? Wang Teng continued. Because fresh flowers would only stick on a pile of cow dung, a saying which means a beauty marrying an ugly husband. That makes sense. Wang Teng picked up the attributes and turned around to leave. He had no common topic with this pile of cow dung. Goodbye, I hope to never see you again. Then, he continued looking at the rooms one by one. He finally understood what people meant when they said that there were all sorts of mental patients. The man in front of him was one such example. Do you know who I am? Who are you? I'm the creator of the world. God says there must be light, so the world has light. God says there must be air in water. Did God tell you that you should eat your medicine? This was a man who failed at writing online novels. He wanted to become a god. To improve the reading experience of his readers, he decided to immerse himself in the role to write the book. This was a bad move. Then, there was no more story after that. Now, he could be his god in this mental hospital. He wasn't a popular writer earning millions every year. Marrying wealthy young ladies had nothing to do with him anymore. Next. A patient with fetishism. He was hugging a pillow with an anime beauty on it. He kept rubbing against the pillow while licking it. He was even chatting crazily with the beautiful anime character. Japan owes you an anime beauty. Amen, I hope that the sun will protect you. Next. My horizons have truly been broadened. Wang Teng lamented to himself. Finally, he arrived outside the door of the last candidate. If this wasn't the real god of guns, he was definitely fooled by the short-hair man in the morning. Although I discovered a place to collect spirit attributes because of this, I was still fooled. I won't bear with it. He opened the door. There was a man sitting at the side of the bed in the room. He had long black hair, a good imitation of the instant noodle hairstyle. His beard was untrimmed, and his gaze was melancholy. His expression seemed heavy-hearted. Handsome. This was an extremely handsome and charismatic man. As compared to the other mental patients, this man appeared too normal, so normal that he didn't seem to belong here. However, Wang Teng raised his vigilance to an all-time high. The more normal a mental patient seemed, the more dangerous he was, right? "Hello," Wang Teng asked cautiously. "Hello." The man raised his head. His voice was hoarse, but for some reason, one could hear the warmth and gentleness in his tone. He sized up Wang Teng. "You are not a staff here. I came to." "I know. However, don't tell me. I might go crazy. I can't control myself." He seemed to know what Wang Teng wanted to say. Before Wang Teng could finish speaking, he stopped him. "Don't tell you what? Brother, can you give some hints? If not, how am I supposed to guess?" Wang Teng was dumbstruck. In the end, he didn't say anything. But, he already knew that this was the man he was looking for. The thing that couldn't be mentioned if it wasn't guns, it should be the woman he loved. This is a little hard to settle. If I can't even say it, what else can I do? This man is no different from a normal person if his illness doesn't flare up. I can't trick him. Wang Teng could sense that this man wasn't an ordinary person. At least when he was facing him, he felt a sense of danger. If he treated this man like how he had treated the other patients, he would probably die a terrible death. "It looks like you made a futile trip today." The man smiled and asked, "Do you have a cigarette?" This change of topic was so sudden that he almost sprained his back. He took out his cigarette pack and passed it to the other party. He then let out a long breath. "Sigh, it's been a little disappointing but not a futile trip." The man lit up a cigarette and passed the packet back to Wang Teng. Wang Teng was feeling frustrated, so he lit one up too. The two of them started smoking in the ward. "Not bad. You've become a martial warrior at such a young age," the man suddenly said. "How can you tell?" "Feeling, as well as force." "Are you a martial warrior too?" The man smiled and didn't say anything. He remained quiet until he finished smoking his cigarette. "It's a pity that there isn't any alcohol. I haven't drunk alcohol in a long time," said the man finally. "If you want, I can bring some for you in the future." Wang Teng got up and prepared to leave. "Wait." Wang Teng turned around and saw the man throwing something at him. He caught it in a hurry. "What is this?" Part 4 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.